Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Brad Nelson, and I'm joined by the one, the only Ross Merriam. And this is the Mana Trader series. Yes, we don't have a Corey Baumeister today.
That really is just to our benefit.
Not theirs. It might be to ours, but it's not to theirs. And yes, we're here for my favorite Magic format of all time, Standard. The one time of the year the Mana Trader series gives us the best Magic format outside of Commander. All right.
It's going to be a long weekend.
It is definitely going to be a long day of 7 beautiful rounds of Standard. Now, Standard did just have a rotation. We did just get a wonderful, amazing new set into Magic, rotating out 4 old ones, including Goldspan Dragon.
Allrun's Epiphany, or was that one banned in Standard?
Yeah, it eventually did get banned in Standard, yeah.
They adjusted it for Alchemy or whatever.
Yeah, it didn't stop Izzet combo decks from continuing to dominate the format. But now we've got an awesome format, and I'm not going to lie. I played a little bit of this format. I'm enjoying it. And one of the things that it really reminded me of is Khan's block kind of Standard, that mid-rangey, grindy atmosphere of like 3-color decks. I mean, it makes sense, right? Because we've got all the triomes now. This last few sets have come out with 3-color mana bases.
Yeah, no, it definitely does make sense. And I know that Standard has been a bit of a meme because there is a lot of black decks, but I do agree with you. Even if the format is a bit unbalanced, metagame unbalanced, the gameplay is quite good.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And to speak on this metagame imbalance, let's take a look at today's actual metagame for what all the players are going to be playing. And yeah, that is Grixis midrange at 25%, Esper midrange at 21%, Jund midrange at 11%. We got Mono Black midrange at 8%, Rakdos Sacrifice at 5%. And we've got the one non-black deck in Gruul Aggro at 9% on our first slide. That's a lot of black-based midrange.
Yeah, really, pick your flavor almost at that point. Half of the possible 3-color combinations with black represented, all in big numbers, and running the gamut. You see it mixed with green, white, blue, and red in some capacity there. So really showing you the importance of black cards in this metagame, but there are a lot of good support cards, and the choice of support cards really varies. Do you want to play Wedding Announcement? Do you want to play Fable of the Mirror Breaker? Do you want, what kind of additional removal do you want to play? John, do you want to be reanimating their lists that do that, or lists that are just sort of, playing Riveteer's Charm as one of their big mid-range payoffs? So there is a lot of optionality, even if it all centers around this one color. So I will be interested to see how many of our non-black decks rise to the top.
Yeah, and I think that they've got a lot of work to do right now. It's currently a metagame dominated, and let's actually take a look at why black midrange is so dominant. We've got a slide that somewhat describes the issues, right? 79% of today's metagame is black-based midrange decks, and that really is the Meat Hook Massacre. It is just this unbelievably powerful mass removal effect that continues to gain value in gaining life and chipping away at an opponent. And it's just, once a game is stabilized with a Meat Hook Massacre, it's really hard to finish those final points off for an aggressive deck.
Yeah, a really underrated card. At least I underrated it when it was first printed, and those second and third abilities, that kind of Blood Artist, Zulaport Cutthroat kind of effect, really does make a huge difference over the course of long games where both players are trading lots and lots of resources. Becomes a sort of 6, 8, 10 point life swing. It really limits your opponent's ability, their tactical flexibility in what they're able to do. There are times when they'd like to be able to sort of turn the corner and close the game out, but they're a little bit short of doing that. Or there are times when they'd like to be able to use their life total as a resource a little bit more to gain card advantage themselves up for the long game, and they can't do that either. And now it's being combined with Shieldred, which sort of does the same thing in pressuring your opponent's life total, giving you a little bit of an extra buffer. So the combination of the two is also quite powerful.
Yeah, as someone who's always played a lot of mid range, but also tried to attack it at times, one of the things you always would set your decks up to do is get that haste final blowback post Wrath. You'd set them up to be forced to Wrath, and then you'd kill them on the following turn. I mean, Hook Massacre is just insulated by that all by itself. It can keep your one threat still alive, or it can gain the 4 to 5 points needed that turn to make sure that you can't die on the following attack and then continue to stabilize. Now, the reason that the other two cards on this slide are not black is because I believe that both Fable, the Mirror Breaker, and Grixis, and Wedding Announcement and Esper are also leading to the reasons why black is so dominant, because they are unbelievably powerful 3 drops backed up by all of the cheap removal that black has to offer in the format, to combine to these boards where it's like, I don't even need to stabilize. I actually am just pulling ahead against aggressive decks in the early turns. And Wedding Announcement's ability to not only draw some cards, but just over the course of a few turns, get these 2/2 bodies. And then that helps cards like the Wandering Emperor or the Wanderer. Which version's the
The
one?
Wandering Emperor.
Yeah, the Wandering Emperor. 2/2s into 3/3s, which are actually trading with some of those 2 drops and 3 drops from the aggressive decks, and just being able to stabilize against cards like Fable. It's why we see Grixis and Esper at the top, and it's these 2 cards in particular that are really benefiting these two strategies.
And notably, Meathook Massacre is the best card in the format to stabilize the battlefield. Once Fable and Wedding Announcement have done their thing and
Hmm.
generated their value, Massacre can deal with all of those tokens that they generate, can deal with the reverse side of Fable, and then other black cards like Invoke Despair. One of your better ways of removing one of these enchantments from the battlefield before it gets full value, while also getting some value back yourself. So it does seem like, oddly, even though it is the color in Magic's history that is the worst at dealing with enchantments, in this standard format, might be the best.
Yeah, and it's also funny that these cards also are insulating the creature tokens they create insulate you from Invoke Despair, sacrificing a premium creature. What's funny though is I thought that this was going to happen, and I think that Invoke Despair was a really like day one strategy. I don't think we're going to see a lot of them this weekend. One of the things that Esper did was it saw all of these Invoke Despair strategies, started adding counter spells to combat them, and really took over the metagame. And as a result of that, all right, and as a result of that, we saw Grixis kind of lower its curve, be more creature based, less Invoke Despair. So I think that we're going to see those two decks really pivot for top strategy this weekend, and we're not going to see a lot of Invoke Despairs because they both run counter spells. Now, I did hear at pairings are going up for round one. Do we know who or what we're going to be watching for round one, Adrian? Yeah, I like that. Yeah, we're going to be watching Salvato, and let's take a look at the players to watch real quick to see what they're playing.
Salvato on Rakdos Sacrifice.
Yeah, this is also now Salvato has done well in, I believe, Magic Online um challenges over the weekends with Rakdos Sacrifice. This is a strategy that's also trying to just get a little bit lower than these current strategies, really utilizing the effects of Onicult Anvil, experimental synthesizer, and just staying a little low to the ground, a little more aggressive. But as you can see, we've got a few Rakdos Sacrifice, and everyone else is just subscribing to that black plus, that Jund, that Grixis, or that Esper strategy. So I mean, we're in for a mid-range battle. We might only have 7 rounds today, but they are not going to go fast. There's going to be so much back and forth today. I'm really excited to watch just an entire day of mid-range Magic.
Yeah, going to be a lot of back and forth. A lot of on the battlefield. And then a little bit of battle cruiser magic. But like you said, it's the blue mid range decks that put a stop to the battle cruiser magic when everybody tries to play 5, 6, 7 minute spells and go over the top. You start getting a few counter spells in your deck.
Oh, there are. If you're thinking that we're going to battle cruise today, we are not. We
Yeah.
will snowball advantages, but these decks are lean, and that's another one of the reasons why the aggressive decks are just having a tough time. Esper tops out at 4 mana. Grixis tops out at 5. Like these cards are efficient. These Shieldreds and these Esper strategies, the Rafines, they keep it lean. They have so much text. They do so many unique things. It's tough to be
Yeah.
an aggressive deck these days.
And that's one of the things I like about this Rakdos Sacrifice deck is that it pushes that leanness to the extreme and is going to be able to, hopefully get underneath even the Esper and Grixis decks while still being able to compete with them in the mid to late game with these sacrifice synergies, all the value that Anvil and Experimental Synthesizer generate. But if you're able to, play that game always from a position where you're slightly ahead, you can kind of pigeonhole your opponent into not being able to, maximize the value of their own cards and gain an advantage there, even if your cards look a little bit underpowered on paper.
Yeah, one of the biggest rules of standard is maximize your interaction while minimizing your opponents, and that's what a deck like Rakdos Sacrifice is trying to do. It's trying to gain these advantages that the other decks don't really have answers to, and just a common core philosophy of standard for years. Once you crack that code and you start looking at it that way, you're going to find these strategies that can pop up and do well each week.
Yeah. And we noted that Fable, the Mirror Breaker, and the Meathook Massacre are two of our premier cards in the metagame. And this Rakdos Sacrifice deck looks like it takes excellent advantage of both of them beyond
Yes.
just the normal mid-range strategies and the power of those cards. You're able to trigger Meathook Massacre a lot more often. You're able to get value out of the different tokens from Fable, including the treasures and the goblins and the reverse side of it, generating more sacrifice energies and really supercharging that engine.
Yeah, super exciting stuff. So, do we have players playing yet, Adrian? Or are they still getting set up? All right. Well, let's take a look at one of my favorite decks. Let's look at Esper. This is the deck that I played a little bit last week. The moment that I looked at it, I was like, "Yep, this is me." And what these Esper strategies are trying to do is have a low efficient curve of creatures backed up by highly effective cheap spells. And so what we're seeing here is we've got Tenacious Underdog, which is the format's MVP. Great way to use additional mana, gain card advantage when you're flooding out. Just a really good mana sink. Now,
And Esper is certainly the best Tenacious Underdog deck because it has a lot more connive with Rafine in addition to these planeswalkers like Kaito Shizuki and Liliana of the Veil. So you're discarding that Tenacious Underdog for value a lot of the time.
yeah, and one of the things about the format is because Tenacious Underdog is so good, there's a lot of people that play Graveyard Trespasser, ways to interact with the graveyards. And that's one of the interesting things about Esper is they got Dennick. Dennick has three actual very relevant abilities. First, lifelink with cards like Rafine and the Wandering Emperor to be able to create a pretty massive lifelinking threat to not only attack these aggressive decks, but hold back to block. But along with the ability to stop cards from graveyards from being targeted, shutting down those abilities to hit those Tenacious Underdogs. And last but not least, it has a backside that effectively is your tireless tracker of the format.
Oh yeah. So you look at this card, and initially it kind of looks like an anti-hate card where it's just protecting your underdogs. But really, this is a card that generates card advantage by itself, so it fits into the mid-range strategy, as a standalone.
It is phenomenal. Now we're gonna have to cut this short because we're actually going to our feature match. We're gonna be watching Nathan B as the other match is still trying to set up. Let's get into the action. And we have started. This, I'm not gonna lie, coming into this looks like two different formats based on the art. Like seeing that old Carplution Forest. All right, so we've got Nathan up top, I believe is on
Nathan,
Jund.
yeah, Jund.
Yeah, and can you highlight what is the creature on the other side? I am not familiar with all of whenever we're in Beast Caller, whenever you cast a creature spell, put a +1/+1 on it. Whenever this card dies, distribute X counters. Wow. Okay, I have actually not seen that. Let's pull up this deck list by Slunk.
So this is one of our Gruul aggro players, and yeah, looks pretty straightforward in what it's trying to do. We've got a very low curve card that I'm excited to see. That I know when I saw it on the preview list, I thought had a lot of potential in Shivan Devastator. I really like that card in aggressive decks because it fits at any spot on the curve, and at almost any spot on the curve, it is a quality creature. You get 3 mana, it's a 2/2 flying haste, and scales up really well from there.
One of the most powerful cards that's it seems to be a one of in the deck is Alana and Alina Partners. Being able to put 2 counters on that and an additional third for casting a spell, and that's coming in for 5 damage now.
It looks like they've prioritized Thundering Raiju as their 4 drop of choice.
As they all should. This is one of the ways that you can, get a huge chunk out of these mid-range decks. And like you said, like haste is going to be very important against Meat Massacre.
Yeah, and there are so many haste creatures in this deck with Reckless Stormseeker, Thundering Raiju. We see a Squee, Dubious Monarch, Shivan Devastator having haste. My Iconoclast can get haste with that kicker, so a ton of haste damage out of this Gruul deck. Almost every creature that costs more than 2 mana.
And here we see the formats: big, beautiful bomb mythic Shieldred coming down.
That's gonna be tough. The Gruul deck doesn't really have a lot of removal. The only removal spell in the main deck here for Slunk is Kami's
Well,
Flare.
as you say that, they're now attacking with a 5/5 and a 6/6 haste dragon. No, actually, they're both 6/6s. Do we have either hand cam? All right. All right. They are trying to investigate why we're not having hand cams right now.
Shieldred there actually just forced to trade off. That was
And it's going to be able to distribute those counters that it had. So we might see hopefully some removal spell, or Nathan is just going to be dead immediately. Super quick game. And that is another thing I like about these. There's so many different counters that, Kodama, the West Tree, isn't being highlighted as a card that's played a whole lot. Mostly because the effect isn't that strong in all seriousness, being able to get extra lands. I love my value and I love my lands.
and with Shivan Devastator, you do take some advantage of it. You do. It's nice to at least have one good mana sink.
Yeah. All right. Well, sacrificing blood is always what you want to see when your opponent is facing down lethal.
And it looks like Nathan just doesn't have a removal spell for this Shivan Devastator. Yeah, that is not good. Your Shivan Devastator kills you very quickly.
Yeah. Now there might be some instant speed removal here.
Interestingly, the Jund deck, one of its premium removal spells, especially for big creature, is Riveteer's Charm. That mode is highest mana value. Shivan Devastator only has
Yeah.
mana value 1. So it really needs to find Transport, which is sorcery, so we know that's not there, or Infernal Grasp.
Well, we saw Voltage Surge take down that. What's the name of that card? I'm gonna have to learn the names of cards again.
Well, that's Yavimaya Iconoclast.
Yes, which is a kicker to get +1/+1 and haste. A great magic card.
And really good play here from Slunk, actually, with the dividing of those counters. Got Shivan Devastator up to an 8/8, which put it out of range of Unleash the Inferno, which is one of the other big draws to Jund. 7 damage instant speed burn spell. So Devastator really at that point, not many answers. As long as you have some other creatures on the battlefield. And yeah, you saw Riveteer's Charm there. I'm sure, Nathan would have loved to take out the Devastator with that, but unfortunately, that's not how the card works.
Yeah, we're gonna actually switch over to another match that has hand cams, everyone. All right, yeah, we're coming back to the booth here, and I do have to apologize. The reason we're switching is because I said that we're gonna be here for some long mid-range back and forth, and that's not what we showed. And we're here to give you what I say.
We don't want to let you know that Brad is a liar right from round 1.
Yeah,
We want to let you find that out slowly over the
more
course of the weekend.
importantly, that I'm over the hill and incorrect now. More importantly, like we don't need that happening.
We're gonna watch a match that's gonna go 74 minutes somehow, and still nobody's gonna time out. We're gonna have to figure out why. It's not gonna make any sense.
I mean, as long as I'm right. At this point in life, that's all I care about.
You gotta take your victories where they come.
All right, so now we're going to be taking a look at Lavunga on Rakdos, which will have hand cam, and so that will be exciting. Also, I do want to see this Rakdos deck against another aggressive deck. Now, I do believe we're going to see way less aggressive decks as the day goes. We've got a mono red strategy. One of the things, when I looked into this format, I cackled because Esper has a card called Blowback, I believe, or Blowout. And what's amazing about it is it's a 1 mana removal spell for red decks that gains you life. And then you've also got a 1 mana black removal spell for early creatures. So these aggressive decks not only have to deal with Meathope Massacre, but unbelievably cheap and effective removal spells.
Yeah, and some good defensive creatures. You have these value generating enchantments that you really can't afford to trade off for. So it is a tough world we're living in for aggressive players. Yeah, like LBBL decided to get a little cheeky with their deck labeling.
As someone who's worked with Melee for a very long time, I love the cheekiness, said sarcastically.
They have labeled their deck as Azorius Control. They are a mono red aggro player here. Yeah, and like our Gruul player we saw in that first game, very straightforward. Almost all creatures here. We got a little bit of burn with Play with Fire and Lightning Strike. And once again, an emphasis on haste creatures: Shivan Devastator, Reckless Stormseeker, Thundering Raiju, Squee Dubious Monarch, um, you know, just and Bloodthirsty Adversary and Phoenix Chick. So looks like 22 of the 26 creatures in this deck as haste.
Yeah, and 3 of them are coming in right now. And we saw a mirror of Kiki making another Valdarin to create an additional blood token, which will be nice for that Unoccult Anvil eventually. But yeah, we're just seeing block, block, block. All right. Something big has to come through, but it could be a meat hook massacre.
Yeah, this is what these are the situations from the sacrifice side where you're just treading water, trying to find some big card to get back in the game. I think.
Shieldred can do it.
Yep,
and with those blood tokens, such a good little synergy of gaining life right immediately off of this card.
Gaining life with Shieldred, generating a construct token off the Unoccult Anvil. Not a bad deal for a blood token that probably came for free alongside a bloodthirsty or a blood tithe harvester.
If I didn't open a textured foil of Shieldred out of one of my awesome packs, I forgot what they're called, the best packs.
Collector boosters?
The collector booster, I would be mad that this card exists. But since I have it, I'm pretty happy. Yeah, look at that. Death Touch. 2 colors, black, black for a 4/5 already. Death Touch. So it's always trading. And whenever you draw a card, you gain 2 life. Whenever opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. Both have extremely relevant text. We're seeing this card also take over for Kalidas. There's a big argument about Rakdos and Pioneer these days. Which one's better?
Is winning that argument right now.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Can't get Lava Cold. I was going to trade. That 5th toughness is huge. The evasion's huge. Or no, it doesn't have evasion.
But the Rakdos deck and Pioneer is so good at limiting both players' resources, especially now that they have Liliana of the Veil. Shieldred is just a way better threat than Kalidas on an empty board.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're seeing is the value of that, as a top deck.
I'm going to show my age here real quick. And I'm going to say that it has a lot of that Battle Grace Angel energy that, once things are attritioned, if that's the last thing that gets cast and no one has removal so far, it can take over a game from so many unique positions because of the life gain and loss. Whereas a card like Kalidas on low, if you're a little behind and low resources, isn't going to get that job done.
Yeah. And Shieldred here, getting that job done, gaining a ton of life here to negate the Shivan Devastator from LBBL, also just stabilizing the ground. All 3 of those creatures you saw get in the previous turn, staying back because of the 4/5. And how did that Devastator die?
Well, the Devastator. All right, so
Blood Tithe Harvestered. Okay.
Yes, we cast a Blood Tithe Harvester, made a mirror of it, which is one of the best combos in Standard. I'm going to tell you, it is powerful when it gets going.
And got plenty of blood tokens around. So yeah, now even that Devastator, which is really the only offense that LBBL had, only 1 card left in their hand right now. And yeah, it looks like the Shieldred is going to be enough to buy the time for Lavunga to just set up these powerful Rakdos sacrifice synergies.
Yeah, we're going to see another flip. So we've got 2 2/2s, but yeah, it's not enough at this point.
Yep.
There it is.
LBBL agrees.
Yeah, so one of the things, I mean, if I'm trying to think if I should just if this is pretentious of me to talk about. It is. Okay. So as one of the best Standard players of all time, one of the things that I've identified over the years of just coursing through Standard formats is when it's 5 set Standard, it's the best time to be mid-range. The aggressive decks and the control decks just don't have enough tools to really be that dedicated strategy. Whereas mid-range multicolored strategies get to pick from a decent mana base. And mid-range mana bases are usually typically better than 2-color, 3-color aggressives in 5-set standard, yada yada. There's so many reasons to be mid-range. And I think we're gonna see that this week. And it's frustrating for aggressive players for 5-set standard a lot of times, but they get it back later in the format when things get streamlined and you have more combinations of decks. I mean, we've seen it before.
Yeah.
Once you get to 7 or 8 set standard, you get some pretty efficient beatdown decks.
Yeah, and then the increase in power that the mid range decks have with their 3 and 4 mana threats usually isn't enough to offset, the streamlined nature of the aggressive decks because they have enough powerful 1 and 2 drops to fill out their curve.
Yes, and yeah, we've seen it with even the Hazoret red decks. Those 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 converted, like, they had fillers, they had a good curve. They're immaculate strategies.
And looking at LBBL sideboard, I think they're going to become more of a mid range deck here. I like these Rending Flames as a 5 damage removal spell. They can deal with the Shieldred.
Hmm.
Chandra Dress to Kill is a great source of card advantage, especially against a Rakdos deck that isn't generating a lot of pressure towards early Planeswalkers. That could be a weakness for Rakdos Sacrifice. They don't have a lot of cheap creatures.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing about standard is everyone becomes more mid-range after sideboard. Controls bring in pivot some threats. The mid-range decks bring in removal and a few, or the aggressive decks bring in removal and a few heavy hitters. And that's why I like staying mid-range, because when you're mid-range and they become more mid-range, they're coming to you.
And then I wonder if they want these Atushi the Blazing Skies as another flyer that can go over all these blockers that Anvil generates, but also generate some value against the removal. But I do see Phoenix Chick staying in, so we're at least and Kumano Phases Kakuzen, so that's both 1 drops, at least staying in some capacity. So
I think on the play, you just kind of have to keep your curve.
yeah,
Just take out some of your spot removal that's not going to be as effective. Like, there are targets for play with fire and lightning strikes, but they're not great targets.
yeah. My guess would be these Radas Firebrands coming out, a 1 toughness creature on the ground.
Hmm.
Even if they can get by one token, once they have two, not going to be great.
All right, so we saw, yep, just that play, another attack with the chick. And up on top, we've got a very good hand. We've got a little bit of cheap removal, an Oni called Anvil, a Fabled. It's interesting what the play is to do on this turn. Like, just playing the Oni called Anvil and not holding up for that voltage surge. There is a theory to play the synthesizer. Hope you hit him out, and if you don't, that you can at least sack it to the surge to stay alive.
Yeah, it really has those two options. I would say the big question is whether you want to Fable the next turn. They do go for synthesizer, and looks like they hit a Haunted Ridge, which is a little awkward.
Yeah, they are just gonna let that die. Get exiled for the rest of the game.
Also interesting from the mono red side to sequence those 1 drops in that order. I would think you would want to get the counter onto Phoenix Chick. That's a card you're happy for them to use a removal spell on.
Could have just been how
Yeah,
things were drawn.
could have been how they were drawn. Could be just not valuing Chick, wanting to get another counter on the Devastator. Because getting the third counter on the Devastator does force that sacrifice of the synthesizer with the Voltage Surge.
Okay, here we go. Now we'll get down a token able to block the 2/2 that's going to be created right here. And things seem slightly stable, but if any big threat comes down for LBBL, then it's going to be difficult to deal with. I guess the Soul Transfer also has that checked.
And yeah, the Soul Transfer is nice. The Anvil is okay at this point, but not great because that synthesizer is now gone.
Whoa, what is a Crystal Grotto? Grotto, I've never even seen this card. When it enters the battlefield, scry 1. Okay. I mean, that's not bad for a multicolor land. I don't think it's that bad.
Just trying to get some value out of their mana base as a monocolored deck. You see two copies of Crystal Grotto alongside 2 Sokenzen and 18 Mountains. So you've got your 20 red sources. That's gonna be enough. You see there's a lot of colorless in the casting cost of all these
Mhm.
spells. So getting a couple scries here and there could be quite valuable. And We see it come down here at a point where it is certainly not hurting their mana base.
Yeah, we saw only one discard in the Springs, and two anvils is not where you really want to be right now, but Soul Transfer is an exile, right?
Yep, it is an exile, so that is going to solve a Tushi quite cleanly. We do see the Tushis coming in from the sideboard for LBBL, so I don't wonder how many of these sort of mid-range cards came in.
All right. So just doing anvil things.
Well, the second anvil is nice because they'll both trigger off this sacrifice, and now you can get that loop going where you're generating just a little bit of value every turn. So, though it is interesting that they chose not to use the soul transfer on the Atushi, though now they're setting themselves up.
Oh, wow. This is a turn. All right. So that Thunderous Raiju is going to be able to put a counter on it, get an extra point of damage, and just really start dealing a bunch of damage. All right. So now we're at least going to see a Kiki for another blocker, and this soul transfer is going to be able to kill something. But both threats are needing to be dealt with.
Yeah, and it looks like there's only the one answer in Lavunga's hand. Their hand cam hasn't been updated in a second, but they at least have that Sulphur Springs and the Soul Transfer. There's one unknown card from this turn. I believe that mountain that you see was played last turn. The Soul Transfer, yeah, does take care of the Atushi.
Just has to.
Yeah. They did have meet the condition to be able to use both modes, but nothing in their graveyard to bring back. So
Decided against sacking the anvil to itself to put up enough to fight the Thunder and
oh, the,
Riju.
the Sulphur Springs got discarded to Fable. Okay,
Yes.
that's been
Yeah. Another. Oh, so many threats.
just haste, haste, haste. Not giving the opponent any room to breathe here. That's really important when you're playing aggro against mid range. Against control, you do often have some room to breathe and measure your threats, not run into their sweepers. But against mid range, if you give them room to stabilize the battlefield, you don't really usually have good ways to get back into the game. So you got to just keep the pedal to the metal and make sure your opponent is constantly like chump blocking to preserve their life total, using their spells at inopportune times, like forcing them to use that soul transfer early before they can set it up and get additional value from it.
Yep. All right. So we're going to see 4 damage come in. No real way to deal anything. I guess that anvil is going to be able to at least sacrifice it. Yeah, there's only 2 cards. The hand cam has not been updated for Lavunga, so we don't know what else is going on
Yeah.
there.
But being forced to chump block with those constructs, now there's no more artifacts to feed to the anvil here and generate more value. Okay, Handcam updated. They've cast a Tenacious Underdog. They've a Braid Meathook Massacre in hand, but the Thundering Raiju got a counter. So now it's a 4/4. The Braid isn't going to answer it.
Yeah, the hits keep on coming.
So we could definitely see the Meathook Massacre next turn deal with everything else and create a sizable life swing to give you a couple draws. Um, Fortunately, without that Sulphur Springs, they're stuck on 4 lands. If they could get to 6, you could, I guess at 5, you could meat hook for 1 and then a braid down the Raiju.
Well, we'll be able to deal with it this turn with the abrade.
You can block and a braid. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and then clean up the rest of the massacre. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, looks like we've found some good tools here, and it'll be now. It's what are the leftovers here for LBBL? Only 2 cards in hand on the mono red side.
I mean, after this combat, another a sushi is going to come down and it's going to ruin all of that combat. I've lost to red enough times in my life. I know what's happening. All right, so diversifying the counters, but yeah, we're going to see. What's interesting here is you want to make this block because it's actually life. If you did it the other way, you don't actually want to trade off all the threats. You want them to live so your massacre gains you an additional life.
Oh,
I don't
interesting.
mind it because you're going to lose these threats anyway. You might as well keep the abrade.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And if LBBL uses a burn spell on one of those creatures, and then you have to use the abrade, that's fine too.
No, that's better. Yep.
Yeah, you
Because
want
you could do it the other way, uh, and to kill off the vampire, but you don't actually want to do that. You want it alive for the meat hook. And seeing that block, you have to think, oh, I think I'm going to get meat hooked.
yeah. Oh, but still plays another creature into it.
Oh no, that wasn't a sushi. At sushi?
A sushi. Oh yeah, I missed the
At
first S in
sushi?
that name. It's just Todd's invitational card because he's always at sushi.
I was looking for the joke. I was looking for the joke, even though no one else knows that.
Yeah. I think he has messaged our group chat about 4 times in the last 2 weeks, trying to
Mhm.
get people to meet him at lunch.
And I have a it's always at 1 o'clock, and I always have a 1 o'clock meeting. I have a 1 o'clock daily. Actually, that changed, but yeah. Okay, so we're going to see an adversary be able to trigger to bring back what burn spell is in there.
There's no burn spells there.
Just the +1/+1 counter.
Yeah. So just the 3/3 haste. The abrade can clean that up. Harvester is a solid draw here. Just a threat you can play alongside the abrade. Looks like Lavunga has stabilized this game, but really it only takes one big draw. Shivan Devastator, a Thundering Raiju. Even a Squee would be pretty good here.
Yeah, well, you got to get past that abrade first. The abrade's going to be able to trigger off no trade, no.
Interesting.
I guess it makes sense. You have burn spells and you want to make them use the blood token.
Braid just eats the 3/3 anyway, so really no harm, no foul there. Soul Transfer a solid draw. That'll, cover and it's sushi or Chandra Dress to Kill, which are some of the better potential draws from LBBL in this situation.
So now you're here. Do I bring the dog back and go to 4? Oh, I'm just going to get in. I never know if I'm supposed to make those attacks.
And
I guess if they're empty-handed, you should.
yeah, I'm generally in favor of trying to cut off their number of draws. Oh, that's a good one too. So we're on the Mirthless coming down here, going to make a lifelink blocker. And yeah, I think while the top deck war is generally going to favor these mid range decks, Luminga has won this top deck war pretty handily. And there's another concession. So Rakdos
Right.
Sacrifice taking down Mono Red here in round 1. I would say typically Sacrifice decks do very much like to play against other aggressive decks because, like mid range, they have lots of cheap removal, but they're even leaner. So you're
Mm-hmm.
less likely to fall behind. They also take such good, advantage of Meat Hook Massacre, and you saw how good of advantage Shieldred, can generate with those blood tokens from Blood Tithe Harvester and potentially Voldaren Epic here as well.
One of my favorite things about doing coverage on the Minor Trader series is they have openly allowed me to speak about my opinions on everything. And yeah, mid-range is great. It's always good. Like, there's no reason to play control or aggro unless like maybe 10% of the time. And other than that, you just play good, meaty mid-range threats, answers, and card advantage. That's how standard works. It's how it should work every single time. It's what you do.
Is generally the hallmark of standard, especially the standard environments that we look back to fondly, like you mentioned cons earlier in the broadcast. Those are mid-range heavy formats. They tend to work well. Usually, if aggro decks are too good in standard, it's because the tools just aren't there to handle them, and that's
It's
usually a problem.
I think it's usually that their curves are so well put together with cards that also have mana sinks attached to them and a few utility lands. It's when multicolored lands aren't that great, and there's like a what's the ability, the eternalize abilities that are really good, or something that brings a creature back from the graveyard. Those
Yeah.
are typically the formats where aggressive decks really thrive. But the funny thing about this format is the best one that does that is a mid-range card in Underdog,
Yeah.
right? It's
And
oh, we gotta oh I just heard that they have a Grixis mirror ready for us when we're ready, and I'm ready for a Grixis mirror.
let's go to it.
Let's go to a Grixis mirror.
I really think the aggressive decks are missing those creature lands that rotated with the Dungeons and Dragons set.
Yes.
We had a Den of the Bugbear there for our mono red player. Those games might have been different, but see what's going on with our Grixis mirror. Not a lot on the battlefield. Looks like a lot of resources are traded. Cards in hand for each player. We got there's a Sorin on one side of the battlefield.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
a big deal.
what you often see in standard mid-range mirrors is, like I said, more of a snowball than a battle cruiser magic. Someone gets a Sorin or a Rafine or a Kaido, just something to generate card advantage, and snowballs over the other one.
Yeah. When at first glance, it looked like there wasn't a whole lot because there wasn't a whole lot between the lands, but all the important stuff is in the row with the lands.
Yes. Yeah. So we're taking the ability of the corpse.
Doesn't look like there's a juicy target, by which I mean a tenacious underdog.
Now this can exile anything, or it has to be a creature, right?
I think it exiles.
Yeah, or yeah, because there is one with at I forgot what that card's called. The Insight, the blue black card. Let's get these deck lists up because so I can
Oh,
remember.
Siphon Insight.
Yeah, Siphon Insight, one of my favorite cards.
Oh yeah, always one of the most fun things in Magic is winning with your opponent's cards.
Especially when they're the same cards.
Yeah, just make sure you give them back if you're playing paper. That could get awkward in the semifinals of the tournament.
I actually was watching that. Please continue your storyline. Who won that tournament, Ross?
Oh, the more handsome player did.
I don't think Corey did. All right, so we see another Fable of the Mirror Breaker. So you know what? Fable of the Mirror Breaker hasn't been banned yet, but Uro got banned. Let's talk about that.
Well, Uro is like Fable the Mirror Breaker, but even better.
I do agree.
Yeah. Uro's like if Fable, just drew 2 cards on chapter 2 and also gained you 4 life on chapter 3 somehow.
All right, so we saw Soul Transfer take care of that Planeswalker, and again, no creature to come back to play, even though both modes were enabled. And we're going to see a chapter 2 and 3 go off.
Interesting. Looking at the deck list, Silvergo Lords is a little bit more creature heavy. We see some Shieldreds, see some Urtai Resurrecteds, whereas Andy Awkward only has the Underdogs, Harvesters, and Corpse Appraisers. So a little bit more controlling with these Siphon Insights, with Make Disappear as a counter spell, even a single copy of Spell Pierce in the main. So going a little bit more of a controlling route, trying to blank some closing and removal spells because none of these are great targets for spot removal spells.
Yeah, I'm always more inclined to be a little bit more mid-rangey game one, have a few more threats going on, because getting everything to line up doesn't always work out too well. What is that kicker spell that I saw?
Oh, that's Rona's Vortex.
Yeah.
One blue instant to creature or planeswalker you don't control. You can kick it for 2 and a black. You do that, you instead put it on the bottom of their library.
So it's a removal spell for 4 mana and a bounce spell for 1.
Yeah.
That's
For creatures or planeswalkers.
poor unsummon. All right, so we see a giant board of threats and only 5 lands, so you can't even get max punished from a Meat Hook Massacre, even though there's one already played, so odds are there isn't another one in hand.
And even has the Sorin back in hand. So Silvergo Lord looking pretty good here.
All right, so we're going to see another corpse. Get a trigger off.
And this really is the result of the card advantage generated by Sorin. So a few turns ago, it was really just Sorin and one creature tearing down the Meathook Massacre. And like you said, that card advantage just snowballed and eventually becomes this massive advantage on the battlefield that Andy really didn't have an answer to.
Yeah, it's how I think we're just gonna. A lot of today's matches are gonna play out that way, and I'm really looking forward to when we can have deeper in the tournament, like in Esper versus Grixis, because I believe those games play out they're so fun to play from the Esper side because all right, yeah, we'll take a look at all right. So this is Andy's exact deck list. And as we can see, yep, the 10 creatures, the more controlling aspects of the strategy, which in all honesty, it's probably a decent place to be. Um, I definitely I have a tough time liking so many spells, but the reality is those Siphon Insights do work well with when you're holding up counter spells. But the reality is, standard doesn't really play out how it used to, where it's like I'll hold up my mana leak card, but I won't use it a lot. So I'll cast a thing twice when they don't have something. Most of the time they have something. So that Siphon Insight usually just sits around and rots until it's the last card you cast. And that's the theory of that's a good card advantage spell when that happens is somewhat relevant, but you lose the options earlier in the turns. It's like sometimes you want to play a different mixture of threats and answers, and it doesn't really fit into that mold.
Yeah. So, Andy losing some ability to be more aggressive here, because that of those siphon insights, but sacrificing that for a little bit more card advantage. So
Hmm.
it's really a question of versatility versus accentuating. One of the more important aspects of these mid-range mirrors, card advantage, obviously very important, but sometimes you just don't have time to deploy all those to use all that mana because you're falling behind to a shielder that went unanswered or a wedding announcement that went unanswered. So we'll see how that plays out, in this round and over the course of the tournament, and whether that sacrifice ends up benefiting or hurting him.
Yeah, and it very well could be a very good card in the mirrors. Like I played them from the Esper side. I can understand that being a good card, but usually like I like to when in doubt jund them out in these mid range matchups. I want to play off the tempo less on the card advantage because when I need card advantage, I've got cards that do that. I've got wedding announcements or Fable or Underdog. You've got all this built into the deck already.
Yeah, and I think one of the really important aspects of playing these mid-range mirrors and being really good at them is using early advantage, using tempo to either open up a window for you to gain card advantage or close the window for your opponent to gain card advantage.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons I like the Esper decks because I love when you're in the thick of it, you have so many counter spells to really tempo them out. Now, all right, we're going to see a Haunted Ridge and a Xander's Lounge. And this is really one of the reasons why I don't think Mardu's actually a strategy in the format. The counters are really good in the mirrors, but you just don't have the Triland.
Were really important for making these mana bases work. That's for sure. Uh, you know, you don't see these decks doing much on turn one,
It's
especially in the
back.
mid-range mirrors.
The Memory Deluge Supreme Verdict Narset Derives Disruption has been the meme of the year. I don't even know how it keeps getting in here. That was was that my test hand when we were setting this all up? Yes, this was the first hand that we tested, and it still just lives on. All right, Fable v Fable.
Narset's a pretty good card. It'll stop Fable.
Yeah,
Yeah. So the Siphon Insight went off on turn two. That's a point in Siphon Insight's favor. Could have played a a 2-drop. Didn't have one. Has a lot of the 2-drops in his deck, but now has something stowed away for later in the game that could end up being very good.
oh for sure. I could
So
also have two creatures attacking this turn. I know.
I,
I'll stop.
I also like that Siphon Insight, just as a flashback card, lets you generate value from the second chapter of Fable.
Yes, no, I agree. I think that it is most likely a very good card in the deck. Like I'm not judging it
Yeah,
too much. Oh wow, attacked, didn't get blocked, and used that siphon.
that is an aggressive line.
Yeah, just keep them off the treasures.
That's another creature to follow up in this Harvester. So, yeah, good amount of pressure here on Andy's side, and has already generated some card advantage with the Siphon Insight. Though I guess you could say the Soul Transfer was sort of negative card advantage, only dealing with part of this Fable.
Yeah, and we'll see what's capable on this turn. I mean, Meat Hook could clean these two up, but then you're going to be getting the Kiki flip next turn,
And
and we
to
need
me,
that hand updated so we don't exactly know what cards are in there.
using that soul transfer that aggressively could be a sign that the Siphon Insight hit something juicy, and you feel more comfortable doing that because you know you have more in the holster. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because we're a spectator, we can't actually see what it is. The player only gets access to that. I don't think we get that. It is a mystery. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I want to know. There's also 4 cards in hand, and just using what you know, we already know that there's another Infernal Grasp, so they've got a second removal spell. All right. That'll come down, generate some card advantage.
Unfortunately, the Corpse Appraiser are unable to exile the Siphon Insight. It only appraises corpses, not whatever spells leave behind.
Makes sense. That would be more of like the garbage appraiser.
Yeah, the trash collector.
Yeah.
Garbage man can, Marge. Garbage man can.
All right. We see reflection of Kiki Jiki.
And
And
with the Blood Tithe Harvester, we got a combo to be able to, efficiently deal with the various value creatures that you see in the Grixis Mirror. You don't really want to use removal spells on them, though. Infernal Grasp once again being used on the Appraiser, so I guess really valuing getting this pressure down,
yeah,
getting the extra mana.
it makes sense because you get the damage in, you get a treasure token. Um, there could be a counterspell to stop any mass removal shenanigans. And it really depends on how much. Oh no, we are assuming that they don't have any meat hook massacres. And I often on the draw will keep at least 1 or 2. And on the play, I might keep 1. But these are the situations when you're up against Fable, you don't really want meat hook massacre in some mid-range, battles. But when you're faced against Fable or Wedding Invitation, sometimes you need some cleanup.
Yep. And there's also the potential that these players have been playing against each other all month, qualifying for this event. They might know each other's tendencies a little bit.
Oh, I mean, I'm assuming that it's still there, but just in low numbers because you can't keep too much. I mean, we all know mid-range mirrors. You can't keep too much mass removal, but you kind of have to have some. All right, so we have a Sheoldred coming down. Just taking the 4.
Yeah, discarding a Tenacious Underdog, though, so getting a little bit of value there.
Oof. The moment I saw Sheoldred, I already knew I was going to get annoyed with it on Arena because if you're tapped out and you have a removal spell, it'll still go through your draw phase and you'll take the 2 even though you could kill it at upkeep. And that's +1 to MTGO interface. Soul Transfer took it
Yeah,
down.
but we did control both an artifact and an enchantment.
But we didn't have we got our garbage collected. Remember? We got our corpse appraised.
Wasn't there a Tenacious Underdog discarded to the? Oh no, was that a?
Oh, maybe it was. Maybe it did go.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh
not.
yeah, there's an underdog on the battlefield. Or did that get?
That probably got put back in hand and cast because the hand cam isn't showing up. We don't really, we
Yeah,
don't know.
I thought that got discarded to the Fable though.
It probably did, and then
Yeah.
got put back in hand because of the soul transfer and then cast.
Oh,
It all happened so fast.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's not reanimate.
Yeah, that'd be way too good.
Well, way
Costs
too
3
good.
mana. What am I thinking?
We'd see 4 of it in all of the Jund reanimate decks.
That all makes sense.
Yeah.
So we got good value from that soul transfer. Though we've sacrificed some value trying to generate a lot of pressure.
Whoa, make disappear to keep the pressure.
That is a really big benefit to the way Andy has played this game. Get really far ahead, generate all this extra mana from treasures from these goblin shaman tokens, and use that to double, triple spell with a counter spell to protect his position and press his advantage further.
And now we're gonna see Soren come down.
Yeah, and this is a perfect time for that because Silver Lord can't deal with the Soren. They have to deal with the battlefield first.
If you just jam it.
I'm inclined to say no, just because they need two things to live. If they only needed one thing to live, then sure. But we do see Silvergill does have a soul transfer and a harvester, so
Mm-hmm.
you can deal with. I wonder which one they want to deal with. You could exile Underdog, which is nice, but Reflection.
Well, if those are, we don't know the fourth card drawn. There it is. Okay, so the land allows them to still soul transfer and harvester.
Looks like they discarded the harvester. I think he was just digging for a meat
Oh,
hook, thinking I'm going to need the meat hook now or next turn. I might as well dig for it now. And if I miss, I miss.
all right. Well, that does it for that match. We'll come back to the booth here.
And honestly, that makes a lot of sense because then you save the soul transfer to be able to deal with the sword. So
Yeah.
you actually have a pathway into the game, to get back into the game. That looks like a very risky line, and it was. But I think that's a situation where you need to take that kind of a risk in order to have any shot of winning.
Yep. And now we saw Andy Awkward, who did very well in the qualifier weeks leading into this. I believe maybe took third. I would have to double check the list. Yeah, and they are on course. They're not qualified though, right? For December Invitational. Yeah, so they need a good run, and they've been grinding this format and doing pretty well on Magic Online in general. And yeah, if you want to try to get a last chance into the December Invitational, this tournament, do we have that slide prepared? I'm sorry to do we have? Yeah, we do not. All right, we're still working on it, but we'll talk about it. It is a 48-person tournament all year long. People have been qualifying for this. 2 people during the qualifier weeks, 2 people on these weekends that we're commentating. So first and second, that we'll be crowning tomorrow afternoon. We'll be going to the December Invitational, $30,000 in prizes. Um, and if you want a chance to qualify, there is still not only the October weekend, but also the November weekend.
Yeah.
Top two in both the qualifier weeks leading up and in the final Swiss and top 8 phase that we're in right now. You'll get qualified for that, and you can hit exclamation Bash Bros in chat, get a code to get 50% off your next 2 months, your first 2 months of Mana Traders if you don't have it.
Yeah. So that if you haven't been playing the series all year, if you're just figuring out about it now, you have not fallen behind. You can still qualify. These are monthly seasons. So after today or after tomorrow, for next month we'll start a whole new season. And if you do well enough in the qualifying portion, in those qualifying events, if you do first of all, if you do well enough, you go straight to the December event. But you can get into one of these events at the end of the month, and the top two of all of these events also makes it into that big December event.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting. I'm really looking forward to that. But that brings us to the end of round 1 of 7 for this month's standard Mana Trader series. Again, thank you, Ross, for stepping in for Corey, coming in for this weekend. I truly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we're going to take a short break for round 1. We'll be back for round 2 coverage here in just a minute. All right, welcome back, everyone. I was waiting for Corey to come in. I'm used to him starting all of these. My name is Brad Nelson, and this is Ross, and we're still in round 1. We thought that a few were going to wrap up, but because of all the mid-rangey and the late games, we're going to just jump into one of those matches and cover that before we get to round 2. So we should have that ready to go right now. Perfect. All right, so we are down in the red zone.
Yeah. You're at the point where time could become a significant factor here. And both players kind of down reasonably low on resources. Looks like our bottom player having some mana issues here. Stuck on 3.
Yeah, and that is always, where you don't want to be if you're the monocolored deck and you in these mid-range matchups, if you give your opponent too much time to generate value, these are the moments where you're like, I'm just going to keep trying to sculpt my hand and get to a position where you can't beat me with your low land count.
Yep. And at the top, it looks like just about a 1-minute advantage on the clock. So got to be cognizant of that. That is not an advantage I would want to cede, even if it ends with me, making a mistake or two. because the person who is behind on on clock is going to end up being in a position where they're forced to be more aggressive. That could cost them. Ooh, a wandering mind here.
That is an interesting one. Yeah, let's pull that up. I don't even remember that card. Is that the 2/1 that gives, yeah, the value? I forgot that that's even
Yeah.
in the format.
Just another 2-for-1 creature. That one in their main deck. I'm pulling up their list now. Yeah, 3 Wandering Minds in their main. This is another Grixis list that isn't playing a lot of big creatures. See some Urtar Resurrected, but that's a flash creature, so able to hold up counter spells, and they've got 3 copies of Make Disappear and a Disdainful String. So
Can we see what do we know what they got off of that? If we can check the little eyeball. Yeah, off of the. Okay.
yeah, now with Bankbuster and Sorin, card advantage online engine is online for Cabeza de Bolo. At this point, they really just have to play quickly.
Yes, they need to make sure that they keep up with time.
They've maintained this 45-second or so advantage. Oh, interesting. Crewing the bank. Oh, yeah. Crewing the bank buster in response. Still going to sacrifice the appraiser. Just want to stop the underdog from being able to back into Sorin. Underdog now crews one of bottom players, bank busters. I can't quite see their name. Against. Just against. Yeah, they are on the mono blacklist. This was the deck that kind of broke out week 1. And I think the metagame has been reacting to ever since. Though, interestingly, in their list, 0 copies in the main deck of Invoke Despair, card that you mentioned in the intros, has gone down in value now that all the multicolored mid-range decks have various counterspells to punish you for playing a 5-mana sorcery.
Yeah, just the. Do you want to go over or under? And it's really hard to go over the card, so let's get under it.
Yep. Another bank buster here. So basically just playing defensively, which is smart from their position. You know, as long as they don't die, they're going to win on time. And they're generating so much card advantage, even if this were an infinite time game. You know, they would feel pretty comfortable playing defensively here. I think they like the card in their hand because they're drawing in response to the Liliana Plus. And yeah, with against stuck on 3 lands, it's just hard for them to generate a lot of pressure. Both bank busters, I guess, with with oh yeah, not both bank busters coming in, and those are going face because against has to end this game because they're behind on clock. So normally, I think you would see those, at least one of those, pressure the Sorin or force a chump block with the 2/2, or both of them come in to deal with that Sorin, but it's not really something they're able to do. Sorin still just gets cashed in for a vampire token. Once again, you know, a more defensive line here from Cabeza de Bolo. They are at a somewhat precarious 7 here. If against can muster up another creature here to crew Bankbuster, 4th land, Shieldred here would be really nice, but I do not see any copies of that in against deck. So Bankbuster's now getting held back by these vampires. Interesting double block because the attack sort of suggests that against has a removal spell, and they do indeed. So Cabeza sort of walking into that 2-for-1. But just protecting the planeswalkers and protecting their life total is going to be good enough. So that's one of those situations where you really don't mind it. You're just trying to take game actions. Now that we get one of those fancy tokens from one Bank Buster, I was going to say that could crew the other one, but I guess they're just trying to draw cards. And you see this card advantage now snowballing for Cabeza. Against was forced into the situation in large part due to the clock to try to be aggressive and wasn't able to get there.
Even though that invoke despair doesn't seem like it's going to do too much, yeah, still going to counter that and end the match. Seeing Grixis take down. Alrighty, welcome back, everyone.
I think that's going to be a key part of these mirrors. Games are going to go long. You got to play quickly. You got to know your deck well in order to be the person that's advantaged in those spots.
Mm-hmm.
We saw just a 1 minute advantage in the clock was enough to really, uh, you know, give a significant advantage to one player over the other. Now, obviously, Against was stuck on lands in that game, so I think that game would have been tough regardless. But they were definitely restricted on what they were able to do, and maybe Cabeza is forced to make a bunch of different plays that they know they're the one that has to end the game.
Yeah. And I'm just there's just nothing better to me than a mid-range deck backed up with counter spells. It's the way I like to play Magic. I love seeing it. And we're odds are going to eventually see the Esper deck that does it the best in this format. Many creatures that counter spells, many ways to sift through their deck to find correct, sequence to get the game to go where you want it to.
And that's one of the downsides of playing with counter spells is sometimes when you fall behind, you got this card in your hand that doesn't answer the cards you need it to answer. You need to, prioritize answering the things on the board, not the threats in their hand. And with all those connive triggers in the Esper deck, you can just pitch those counter spells when they're bad, find the removal you need to catch up in those spots.
That's perfect. Now, we are not done with round one either. We've got a fresh game, so let's get into it. And that's probably going to be the last game of the round. All right. Yeah, so this is a couple players that had an issue probably starting their match. So they had a time extension. We're going to see I was like, what is this one mana going to be from Remy? A Remp?
Um, got some. I got even more one drops than most of the girl lists. I see the Ascendant Pack Leaders and Kumano faces Kakazans that are typical. A couple copies of Rabbit Battery, once again accentuating haste damage. Rabbit Battery can not only be a haste creature early, and give some of your creatures that wouldn't normally have haste late.
It's such a good card. I just love the creature equipment aspect of it.
Yeah, love that versatility, giving you things to do with your mana, as you noted, an important thing for aggro decks to have. And what is our bottom player's name there?
Yeah, Demian 7/7.
Pull up their list. Yeah, just Rakdos sacrifice here. So this is actually what we saw very early in this round: is Rakdos sacrifice against an aggressive deck. Um, yeah, pretty typical stuff here. Take a sideboard, yeah, nothing super spicy out of the sideboard either.
Can we highlight the green creature in play? I just want to read what that is exactly. Any color and target land. Wow, that's actually kind of interesting. Little low power, but a good ramp and good way to utilize extra lands.
Yeah, that's a card that's been making some waves in Pioneer with Jeskai Ascendancy.
Oh, that's cool.
You can make mana with it early and then start generating.
Yeah.
Turning your lands into creatures.
I'm guessing that strategy isn't that good.
I think it with the addition of Loam Speaker, it is now solidly tier 2.
Oh, okay, that's high praise in that format when there's only like 2 tier 1 decks.
Okay, let's say solidly tier 3.
Okay, all right.
It's definitely a tier below some of the other tier 2 decks.
I'm slowly getting excited about regionals and getting to play some Pioneer.
Well, I'm getting excited about the sideboard I'm seeing from Remph. They've got Outland Liberator, which could end up being very good in this matchup.
Yeah, if you get to night mode and actually get to start popping off some of these with combat,
especially with so many ways to potentially give it haste. Is there any other way to get it to night before you cast one? of the second copy then. They do have some Arlen the Pax Hopes in the sideboard. If those came in, you could get tonight with that. Start casting the reverse side of Outland Liberator with haste from either Rabbit Battery or Stormseeker. Doing some cool stuff.
All right, we see a removal spell right there.
Not a ton of pressure here from Remph, but if they have some big threats, there's not a lot going on for their opponent either. They're getting up into that 4 or 5 mana range where things like Thundering Raiju and Lana and Elena come down and start really putting the hurt on.
All right, so we saw a few lands, I believe, get discarded there. Oh, you got to pull that one up for me. I'm still learning some of these lands.
I believe Roadside Reliquary is the one that you can sacrifice for a card, but it's 2 cards. It's 1 card if you control an artifact, 1 card if you control an enchantment. So if you control both, you get 2 cards.
Yep.
Yeah, that is a neat one.
All right, Children, the stabilizer comes down.
Yep. And already still at a healthy 12 life. Gonna demand an answer.
And what answers do we have for it?
Bouncer is a beatdown, unfortunately, is their choice. And they do not have really a creature big enough. So it's a 2 green instant, costs 2 less if you target a black permanent. You deal X to a creature or planeswalker, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. And the creature or planeswalker dealt damage by it. So they need a 5-power creature and the bouncer's beatdown in order for that to work. Definitely, if you do have the creature, having a 1-mana answer to the Shielded is great instead of a 3-mana answer. But needing the big creature out is a task against these Rakdos decks that are flush with removal.
All right, so we're going to see backside Reflection of Kiki Jiki breaking through. We've got the Harvester now, so the combo is online for future turns.
And importantly, an artifact in play now for that Voltage Surge. So we can deal with a 4 toughness creature with that.
Children getting aggressive. That's never what you want.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like there was enough early pressure here. And we didn't really get to a big over-the-top threat fast.
As Magic cards continue their power levels, and they're increasing, and cards like Children exist, and Reflection of Kiki Jiki, Fable, Meat Hook. I think that I could control Standard. I would say that there is a list of evergreen cards, regardless of flavor, and one of them would be Gorkline Rampager.
That is a nice Magic card.
It is a beautiful Magic card.
I would accept Gorkline Rampager in every Standard format.
Yeah. All right, so let's see what Remph can actually do. And as you see, the indecisive tapping, untapping doesn't seem like a lot. All right, we're going to do our Nissa impression and create a 3/3 haste forest. It now has double haste.
So now you could potentially pop that with a Stormseeker, get it to 5 power, and have the bouncer speed down, but that's going to get blown up by this Voltage Surge.
Yeah, can I what did bouncers beat down again one more time for me? Oh yeah, it is 2 if it's a black.
Yeah. This is the greatest power among creatures you control, so that's going to get checked on resolution. Pretty sure that's how that works. We're not, and Damien not even going to give them the option, just Voltage Surging with the on the stack.
Oh, and it's an instant.
It is an instant. It's good. Gonna get the value from the beatdown, at least clear out the Blood Tithe Harvester, but you're not clearing out the Shieldred. Don't think you're gonna have enough to end this game.
No.
And down, attack for 2. Our Stormseeker. Gonna get immediately undone on the draw step.
All right, another voltage surge.
and another harvester. So just immediately replace everything that got traded.
Yeah. Oh, another.
So we can just voltage surge to the 2/3.
Oh, you can. And then I guess you can take down the battery. That's all you would be able to
Yeah,
take down.
but that's fine. There's no cards left in hand for Remphier, so leaving them with just a Loam Speaker uh, seems perfectly fine to me. Actually, you can also just, I guess, attacking for 10 and letting them chump block is worse than just killing it first. Yeah, just deals 7 instead of 6.
Yeah. All right.
I
4
guess
more damage. 2 more
7 instead of 4.
during draw step. Down to 6. 1 card in hand.
Yeah, at that point, I don't even know what that card could be, and Ramp immediately packs it. So, yeah, I think we are seeing exactly what we expected play out. It's a tough world for aggro right now.
All right, welcome back to the booth, everyone. My name is Brad Nelson. I'm joined by the one, the only Ross Merriam, and that was the end of round 1.
Yeah, that was our last match.
Pairings will be, that was the last match of round 1, so pairings will be going. So we're going to have a few minutes here to talk before we get into round 2. And how was your first experience with Standard? Saw, I think, every archetype in round 1 except for Esper. Saw a little Grixis on Grixis.
Grixis, a little Rakdos sack, a little mono black, a little of the aggro decks. You saw both mono red and Gruul represented.
I think we saw 5 different matches. I think that's the most we've seen in Standard. Like we even started with Gruul getting some beat down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just like you said, the aggro decks seem to be really struggling. There's a lot of good cheap interaction for the mid-range decks. A lot of good lean threats that can trade early and leave behind a little bit of an advantage. And then these really powerful 3 and 4 mana plays, Fable the Mirror Breaker, Wedding Announcement, which we didn't see that round, but I'm sure we'll see during the rest of the day. And then, of course, Shieldred, which just has looked insane against the aggro decks. Their answers are very limited. And we saw bouncers beat down from 1. There was also a 3 mana 5 damage spell.
Yeah.
In red. Like that's fine, but not a card that you really want outside of it targeting Shieldred. And usually, when your opponent is bringing in cards that are that narrow and are weak against every other card that you have, you're pretty happy
Oh yeah.
because there's a significant portion of the games that card is going to line up very awkwardly. You're either going to not have a shielder, they have to use it on something else. You're going to draw more shieldreds than they draw that because you're drawing more cards than them, or they're just not going to draw it, and then your shieldreds are still fine. So I'm expecting a lot more of just these black soup mid-range decks the rest of the day.
Yeah,
And
you
I
are.
just saw your eyes go very wide.
Yeah, you are.
That just
Oh, there's nothing better.
I disagree.
What's better?
And anything else.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Anything else? Like lantern mirrors.
Love lantern mirrors. They're great.
Well, I don't. Okay. I'm sorry that Corey wasn't here to be here for you all, but we're here with the one and the only, thank God, Ross Merriam.
If we could just get some Underworld Breach decks, then I'd be in my element.
Yeah, of course, the card that should never have existed, and there's no reason it's still legal in formats.
Can we discard Arclight Phoenix to Fable and make that work somehow?
How is it that a better Yogg's Will is still legal in Modern?
I don't know. I'm trying my best, Brad. I'm trying my best.
Oh, it makes no sense to me. Much like not wanting to play a great grindy format. The only problem with this format is Obzon's not a thing. If we go back to the days where Obzon was the best deck, that would be my glory days. That would be the best time.
Well, these decks are basically the same thing. Who cares about what actual colors they are, Brad? Shieldred is just Siege Rhino.
No, okay, I get that you can get a lot of the same effects out of these cards.
Yeah.
But like Courser, that's my argument.
Yeah, there's no real replacement for Courser.
Courser is that's a magic card.
Yeah, especially with the temples. That was
Course of Crufus and Temples. Yeah, that was the best time for me. But yeah, so we have any updated players to watch to see how they all did in round 1? No. Okay, yeah, yeah. We'll
Well,
get that updated for round 2. Not able to get that for
I
this
I
round.
do have I do have one question though before we get into round two.
Yeah, what's up?
So there's like 4 or 5 different decks in this tournament that don't have black in them. Gruul aggro, there's mono red aggro, there's mono white mid range, or Gruul aggro, mono red aggro, mono white mid range, and there's this Lesnia enchantment deck.
Yeah,
Which of these decks do you think has the best chance of taking down the tournament and slicing their way through a field of
of the
swamps?
mid-range decks. Oh, I actually think the Selesnya Enchantment deck would be a cool one. It's slightly underpowered relative to the other strategies, but has a lot of cool cards. The
Yeah,
problem though is it's 5 set standard and it's a thematic deck, so you got to play a couple rough ones.
yeah, you got to reach to into the bottom of the barrel
Yeah,
to
a- and we're gonna watch that next round. Yeah, we're gonna watch Enchantress next round actually.
excellent.
Yeah, I am all for trying to see some of this cool stuff in the first rounds because we going to be getting to Esper versus Grixis by the end. My prediction is 3 Esper, 3 Grixis, 1 non mid range, and 1 other black mage in the top. And it might be 4 Grixis, 2 Esper, or vice versa.
Yeah, but 6 of
I'm
those,
thinking it's 6 of
a
those 2
Jund mid
decks.
range, and one of our Gruul mono red, mono white,
Something.
green white
Our
players.
hero. That'll be our hero for top 8
Certainly be my hero.
for sure. But yeah, we'll take a look at this Selesnya Enchantress deck that's built around Jukai Naturalist, Azusa, Many Journeys, a card that I played at a professional level. All right, parents are going up. Teachings of the Kirin, which is a very interesting new card, backed up with Rites of Harmony, which is an interesting one with Wedding Invitation and Hollowed Haunting, just really trying to generate a ton of value in some mid-range turns.
Yeah, so this is a deck that has a ton of card advantage. So you can play through removal, but you don't really have a lot of removal yourself. I'm looking at the main deck of one of our listening players lists, and I don't see a single way. Okay, we have 2 copies of Borrowed Time. This is the sort of the new Oblivion Ring effect. Um, with the templating of Vanishing Light.
Yep.
So 2 copies of a way to remove something from the battlefield, really, and that's it. So I have to imagine that the card Shieldred, when your plan is to draw a ton of cards, it's going to be a problem.
We can destroy evil.
Okay, so we have some removal spells on the sideboard,
Yeah.
unsurprisingly. So the removal comes in post board, Circle of Confinement for aggressive decks, Destroy Evil for Shieldred decks, and then a little bit more value here. Okay, we got something. But at least game one, you're basically just hoping Borrow Time is in, the top N cards of your deck, where N is the number of shielded, shocks you can handle. So
Not everyone plays Shelter either, though.
yeah,
It's not a highly played card because Esper and Grixis doesn't play a ton of copies. They have other options as well.
you also gain a bit of life with Azusa's Many Journeys and Catilda. That is a big aspect of this deck, stabilizing. I would tell you exactly what Catilda does, but you might need to update the
Yeah. All right, let's
image
head into the
now.
match that has started. And while we're taking a break, Adrian, you should go look at the art that's used for Catilda on Mana Traders.
It looks like a playmat.
Yeah, I think it's one of the artist proofs.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's a beautiful piece of art.
yeah. The only text it has on it is a signature.
Yep. All right, so we've got let's go look at these deck lists. It looks like the King.
Yeah, that's the list that we've already
Yep.
have up.
And Wizard 2002 underscore.
So they are playing mono white mid range. So we have 2 non-black decks here. So that's going to be interesting. The mono white deck is also one of those like generate a lot of card advantage to things like ambitious farmhand, conniving with a Rafine's informant, fraction specialist, and restoration of a Ganjo, bringing those cards back. Restoration of a Ganjo is a card that when I read on the preview list for NED, you know, that red is a card that is excellent in standard.
Yes, it is very good. And we saw a turn to Azusa's Many Journeys, so that's going to be some ramp and eventually a good threat. We see Urfine's Informant, which is in my favorite, but not. It's my personal favorite deck in Pioneer, which is the Grease Fang strategies. But I don't know if I can actually pull the trigger on it for a competitive event. It's close. I like it. All right, now this is the problem I always run into when it comes to playing. When I played as There's As Many Journeys in an alchemy tournament, is you ramp but don't have the extra land because you're not drawing any extra cards.
But, I've got to say, looking at these lists, they both seem like decks that are packed with their own proactive card advantage, minimal removal, and so they're hoping to play against these black mid-range decks that are playing a lot of removal and to grind through them. That to me seems great for the more synergy-driven deck because they're going to have an opportunity to get their engine online. However, Brad,
What do we got?
I do see a single copy of Farewell in the mono white list, and then a second copy in their sideboard.
Oh.
And that might be a game breaker. If the games are going to go long, you draw a bunch of cards, eventually you find it.
See, I disagree because Rights of Harmony are just going to reload you in those late games.
Well, we'll see if the king is able to navigate to a spot where they're able to have this, big battlefield and still have stuff back. Because if you've cast the Rights of Harmony early, Farewell can exile graveyards too and stop the flashback on them. So you got to have it back in the hand. And how well does the king know the mono white deck lists? How
Oh, absolutely brutal. Is that a Rights of Harmony during the upkeep to trigger off of
Oh yeah,
the thing coming back? I didn't even think about that.
yeah. Rights of Harmony being an instant is a huge deal.
And the Saga's exile and come back. So now that's going to be a trigger. It's going to make a 1/1 that's a trigger. Yeah, you think Farewell's going to stop this engine? And now we've got a wedding invitation, which is going to be 2 more triggers.
Very good.
Don't get greedy. Don't go for these Zuzas and hope you draw a land. All right, another card drop. Okay, this is a delight.
Yeah, with the minimal removal from the mono white deck, Jukai Naturalist.
That was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was 2 mana, draw 5 cards in a turn.
And a lot of it enabled by Jukai Naturalist and the mana that card generated. So I think that's a big card for the Enchantress deck in this matchup because it lets them, really explode early, like you saw with that turn.
And now a haunting can come down along with another wedding invitation. Got that Rights on lock to flash back. You're just going to play a second Hallowed Haunting and just say we're going for it?
Yeah. How many enchantments do we have right now?
Well, we've got a lot of spirits that all have flying and vigilance too.
So at least 7. I think that's on. Yeah.
Oh, it's on. It's on.
Like exactly 7 enchantments. Ooh, but here's a depopulate. So that'll deal with much of the battlefield. But still plenty of cards back for the king, and they've just drawn a second copy of Rite of Harmony. That's what they're going to lead this turn out with. So the wedding announcement is going to draw 2 cards. There's another Azusa's Many Journeys.
I mean, I feel like we could deck.
I think we'll see Azusa's Many Journeys first because we have a land to play with it, and then we can play wedding announcement.
This is absolutely disgusting. This is so cool. Don't stop.
Yeah, we got a land. Oh, now we've Jukai Naturalist into wedding announcement. This is absurd.
Yeah.
Now, the mono white deck does not seem equipped to deal with this kind of synergy.
Nor does our hand cam.
Yeah.
We're at 11 cards now. 12. All right, we're hopefully during cleanup we can get the actual 7 back.
Yeah, this is turn 6, and the king has 25 cards in their library.
Yeah,
this is like Dredge.
This is obscene. And it was the turn after Wrath. It's
yeah.
All right, do it again.
Now do it every turn.
Yeah. All right, so let's see. We're gonna get that Farewell. Let's see what damage that can do.
So I think the big thing there was Jukai Naturalist really speeding up what this Leslie Enchantress deck can do. And the mono white deck does have some they've got to have some removal for it in the sun. They've got some Fate Absence, that's not great. Cather Commando, March of Otherworldly Light. Yeah, I'm not seeing a whole lot that I'm seeing some things that have you know abilities that are somewhat relevant, but not something that's really going to catch them up in this matchup. And yeah,
It's just a tough pairing, right? Because the mono white deck is designed to effectively compete with the other 3-color mid-range decks, and this Enchantress deck is going like, yeah, I don't care about that. Now, I haven't looked yet, Adrian. Are these two 1-0 deck lists? Yes. Okay, this is my hero. Selesnya, Enchantments. Y'all familiar with Grand Prix Reed Duke?
I am.
All right. So if you are, Adrian, you are? Okay. Well, there was a Grand Prix a while back where they just followed Reed Duke until he got eliminated. Yeah, in Legacy, which I believe that he was eliminated on day one. Um, yeah, and I feel like we won't do it initially, but we might need to enact it halfway through this tournament. If Enchantress is like 4-0, we gotta finish it out. Like this is truly like exciting magic for me.
The mono white player has to find some way to be able to stop the king from exploding early like they did in game one. And then maybe they're able to leverage these sweepers, the depopulates and farewells to, gain an advantage. But uh without that, and as soon as the ball gets rolling, there's really no way for Wizard to stop it.
Yeah, and it's tough because it's a mono white mid-rangey deck, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying like it only has so many tools.
Yep.
All
It's
right.
very clearly meant to capitalize on a narrow metagame, and metagame is like that. You know, but sometimes you get the weird pairing. This has got to be the nightmare because I imagine with these sweepers and early creatures and different forms of life gain, you're probably pretty happy to play against the aggro decks.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm under the impression that if you're any non-aggressive deck, you're happy to play against the aggressive decks. That's just where we're at in 5-set standard. The removal in this format is also particularly very effective.
Yeah. And we see Jukai Naturalist. We see that the balls start rolling, but no Rite of Harmony, and
Yeah.
that's the big one. And it looks like a little bit of flooding going on with 3 more lands back for the King.
No, yeah, I want to actually look up Catilda again because I don't remember. Is the backside a? Oh, we just saw and that's great. The Wanderer come down to take that engine out.
Yep. Yeah. Now they're going to be relying on the small ball card advantage here from Wedding Announcement and from Restoration, and that's the kind of game that this mono white deck can win.
Yeah. So casting the Catilda. All right. So it does have flying and yeah, it's power and toughness equal to number of enchantments you control. And yeah, I just want to make sure that the enchant creature also does that because that's something that could have been done is discarding it so that you can bring it back.
It's enchantments plus spirits, and all the tokens made by Hallowed Haunting are spirits. And I would guess that I think this the reverse side of this um, saga is also a spirit likeness of the seeker. Oh no, human monk.
Yeah.
Okay. Um so Catilda itself is a spirit. Is that why it's a 4/4 right now? Down to a 3/3 with the wedding announcement gone? Yeah. Okay. It'll count itself. That makes sense. Usually cards like that, however they're templated, count themselves so that they're always a 1/1.
Here we get to see a Hallowed Haunting into a Teachings. And that will allow the Catilda to fly over and kill that Elspeth or the Wandering Emperor. I just want to call it Elspeth. I
And that unfortunately for our mono white player, that Hallowed Haunting is coming down right after they use their Destroy Evil on the wedding announcement. Now, it makes sense. Wedding announcement was a great card. You want to remove that early before it generates value, but the upside of this Hallowed haunting is significantly higher, especially with all those spirits making Gatilda that much bigger. So we have yet to see a sweeper from Wizard. That's definitely going to be what they need now. If they could find one of those farewells, they can just reset everything, exile all the enchantments, all the creatures, all the graveyards, and they're the one with a couple more cards back in hand. So we've navigated to a situation where the sweepers are relevant, I think. And that's step one for Wizard. Step two is having the sweeper. Then, and that's not over. Step three is like, end the game from there.
Yep.
And that can be tough for the mono white deck too. And this Enchantress deck, I'm sure, is great at top decking. Yeah, just a lot of tough demands on the mono white deck in this matchup.
What could they do? I mean, farewell would be great.
It wouldn't even necessarily be great. It's just necessary.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yes.
Now, then you'd be at a point where you both have a good number of lands. You have a couple cards in hand. They don't, but they're at 37 and you're at 6.
Yeah, chat was saying GG's, that's going to be over. And as we can see in chat, we've got Corey asking how we got into your house, but it's, I mean,
front door.
Yeah, I thought when it comes to brothers, what's mine is yours. That's the phrase, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, for some reason, works for me too, but we'll figure out a justification
You're my
for that
guest.
later. Yeah. I'm actually Henry's guest.
Yes.
I was invited by Henry. He let me in. He needed someone to play. You just waiting for the end of this game?
Yeah, and we might be looking. Yeah, we can. That's perfect. Yeah, send it back to us.
Yeah, just a nightmarish matchup there. Really had to hope to hit those sweepers, and then I don't know how the mono white deck is even supposed to close that game out after they play a sweeper, because I guess there's some sanctuary wardens. It's pretty big.
Yeah, but again, it's the go wideness, right? You can ignore flyers. The token, they get chump blocked the whole time. It's just not the matchup you're looking to play.
Yeah, definitely not.
And
both of these decks, I think, are designed to try to play against the black mid range decks
yep.
with a ton of card advantage of their own and skimping on interaction. And when they run into each other, the deck with the powerful synergies is then just going to run roughshod over the deck that is just a pile of good cards.
Yep.
Because you have all the time in the world to set up those synergies, generate a ton of card advantage off of Rite of Harmony. We saw them do it quick. It wasn't even like they needed all the time in the world. Turn 4, turn 5, they were drawing a ton of cards, and then that just got the ball rolling down the hill, and it was all over.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see what the Selesnya enchantment deck can do. It's also one of the weird archetypes that I always love is just these like super go wide weird, actually green white strategies. I like what they can and can't get away with. Often with their pull in the color pie, which is nowadays it's what can they do? They can kill things, draw cards, play threats, draw cards.
That's basically what they do.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they can counter spells, and what can't they do? Lose?
Certainly not to mono white.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see how resilient they are when their Jukai Naturalist doesn't live past turn 2, and their Rite of Harmony is drawing 2 cards instead of 5.
I'm just going to let everyone know, if you sign up with Azusa's Many Journeys, you also are just guaranteeing that sometimes you will have very embarrassingly bad draws. As someone who went 1-6 or 2-5 with the card in a set championship, I can test. Yeah, and we've got another match coming in. Let's set the stage. Let's see what's happening. See what the matchup is. Jund v Grixis, close to my Esper versus Grixis want.
Still haven't seen an Esper deck, Brad.
They're there. I promise you, they're there.
We're winning. Don't worry.
Yeah. All right. So we've got another harvester here.
Patatinia on our John deck. Look at their list, and ooh, they are going big. This
How
is the
big? Oh,
Reanimator
this is the
version.
Reanimator version. This I love the cruelty of Gix is one of these read ahead sagas, which at first I didn't know how much I was gonna like read ahead, but it's truly powerful.
Yeah, and it can. This is one of those things that I think is easy to dismiss because you look at it and you say, "Well, why would I want to skip ahead? Then I'm going to miss out on all that value." But it's not something that you have to do. It's something that you get to do. So it's automatically a benefit. It's only giving you more options, and that there are definitely a lot of times when you need Cruelty of Gix to return your Titan of Industry or whatever big creature you have right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big fan. One of the things that whenever newer players are asking questions about Magic, um, the word have and get are very important for a lot of things in Magic, including mulligans. I think a lot of newer players always think I have to mulligan, where I've always thought I get to. Like I could get stuck with this hand, but now I get to go dig for a better one. And then once we had the new mulligan rule, everyone realized that usually sixes are better than sevens.
So yeah, this version of John, this is your deck that's trying to go over the top. We've got Cruelty of Gix and Titan of Industry as sort of that reanimator package. Fable is a great enabler, letting you discard Blood Tithe Harvester. Being able to uh, interact early, and that blood token is a source of discard. And then two copies of the Celestis so that you can ramp into Cruelty. It can also let you discard Titan. Sometimes you just ramp up to Titan. There's also four copies of Unleash the Inferno. There's really big, powerful effects here, backed up by that cheap removal. We got Voltage Surge, Infernal Grasp, a copy of Terra Sunder. And so you can play a little bit of a mid range game. You're not as well set up for that, but you've got this really powerful plan that hopefully goes over the top of your opponent because Titan of Industry, powerful creature.
It very much is. And it's one of the things that drew me. This deck was exceptionally powerful. I believe that Crocus was popularizing it around I was playing standard challenges on Arena. And it's one of the reasons why I gravitated towards Esper, because I played against this deck quite a few times. And I realized that when you have Obscurus and counter spells and you get to really tempo these things out. But if people are moving to Grixis over Esper to combat Esper, I feel like that opens the door for Jund once again.
Yeah, definitely. Though now we're starting to see some Grixis lists with more counter spells.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah. So just so everyone knows, Googly's hand cam is correct. Bachatina's is not working, and I bet you all could tell, as that does not look like a actual hand of Magic cards, even if it wasn't a Jund deck. All right, so we're going to get to see this tutor up a card, lose 3 life.
uh,
We're going to use our placeholder. I love it. We're going to get to Fable here. Sift through a little.
good news for Batutinia, opponent's Grixis list is not a counterspell version. There are three copies of Urtai Resurrected. That is the only way to copy spells here. They're playing more creatures with main deck Shieldreds, um, and looks like a lot of removal. Ono's Vortex, though, is a very interesting one because that's one that can answer a Titan of Industry even if they put a shield counter on it.
Oh, yeah.
Same with Soul Transfer.
Yep.
So a lot of good answers to Titan of Industry here, which is good because you don't have a lot of ways from stopping it from entering the battlefield.
No, so let's take a look at that graveyard because we are going to be reanimating next turn. Is the only option the Harvester? From what I can see. Oh, can it hit both graves? Oh yeah, from a graveyard. So what's the best hit? Is there a Shieldred in there? All right, I guess we get a
Yeah.
Shieldred.
What? That is a nice one here.
Could be a corpse to maybe try to get some card advantage too.
Yeah, it could potentially try to hit a Titan from hand here. You get a treasure off of that Goblin Shaman and have a land drop. That'll be enough to just hardcast the Titan.
Yeah. All right, Soul Transfer is taking the token out. Not saving that for what happens with the
Yeah, I think Googly is thinking my opponent's at 7. I can try to close this game out here.
yeah, you do get all these drains as well.
Yep. This could be a big turn for
Oh, if they
Bottatini.
but if they stacked it the other way, they would have been able to Shieldred and then gain 4 life. Oh, but they are going for the corpse. They're going for digging. All right.
And if they were doing that, then largely irrelevant what order.
Oh yeah, because that'll actually exile the yeah, that's a great play because that also gets rid of that
The
threat.
underdog. Yep.
Or did something happen to the Shieldred? Because that's gone now. Did something happen to the Shieldred? It was there. Oh, it got back with Soul Transfer. They could. It wasn't an option. Yeah, the hand just didn't update. All right, so Shieldred from hand with the 3/3. Only 2 blood tokens. Now, if there is a harvester in hand, that will be able to make a third, letting that harvester take down the Shieldred.
At this point, the Meathook Massacre is definitely scary for Bottatini, but they look like they have a few more cards back. Though there's these blood tokens. There's just so much going on. Even on turn 9, both players have a few cards left. They're not super flush with resources, but they've got options. Ty going to be able to destroy the Shieldred. Good tempo swing.
Yeah, Meathook is probably going to have to come down here to stabilize this.
Land cost or something. Nope. Get in with the Goblin first. Removal here for that. No. I said, yeah. Removal for the Goblin would have happened before the attack to deny treasure. So Bottatini falling to 3. And a Shieldred from Googly.
Wow.
Now, Bottatini's removal suite is pretty heavy on Infernal Grasp, too. I think there's 3 copies, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, it has to be land.
Titan? Isn't even good enough?
No, I was saying Meathook Massacre.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. It's all about the hook.
Oh, there's land 7. We're tapping them. There it is. There's the Meathook for 5.
Okay, we've got a game. That is massive.
But non-active players stuff abilities resolve
Oh,
first. So I think we're gonna die.
Yeah, no, you're right. I forgot about the static on the bottom. Yeah, non-actives will all happen. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunate. They would have canceled out eventually, but its abilities go on the stack in nap order: active player, then non-active player. The active player being whoever's turn it is. So Bottatini's Meathook Massacre triggers are going to go on the stack first in whatever order they would like. And then Googly is going to put their triggers on the stack in whatever order they'd like on top. The Googlies are going to resolve first. Bottatini is going to die before you can regain that life and stabilize the battlefield. So unfortunate for him, but that's the way it works. I very often remember having to your opponent's upkeep to kill them with Disciple Ravager in the Affinity Mirrors back in the day.
Oh yeah, no, now you're hitting the nostalgia drip for me. I learned Magic competitively when Goblins and Affinity just were out,
Same.
Skull Clamp. That's when you started too, competitive?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and my friend and I both owned each of us owned Affinity and Goblins, and we would play the 3 matchups over like we'd go to school, we'd go to his basement, and we would just play those matchups over and over again. That's all we had. And so like in my
Well,
first
fortunately,
year,
that's all that mattered.
no, but yeah, but my first year of Magic, I just learned the super technical stack side of it.
Okay. On to game 2 here. So we're gonna have Bajatinia on the play.
Yeah.
Looking at his sideboard, we've got like a bunch of removal, cut downs, parasitic grasps, terrasunders. We have some duresses. Those could be good, though. Googly's list is more creature heavy. They're an even split between creatures and non-creatures. Um, I imagine Duress is still pretty good. But yeah, nothing that seems like a slam dunk here. More bank busters if we want to get into that game, which we probably do. Um, then on Googly's side, I see Unlicensed Nurse. That's a big one because that's a card that can stop the reanimation plan while also being a reasonable threat on its own. Just like a Tormod script that only hurts the graveyard, even Graveyard Trespasser as well. So plenty of ways to attack the graveyard, and a bunch of ways to beef up in the mid-range attrition fights, Sorin, Reckoner Bankbuster, Duresses. So I'm liking Googly's sideboard here.
Yeah, I do like Batatina is someone that I highly respect as a Magic Online grinder, someone who's often uh current and someone that I will change my preconceived notions of a format from seeing. So coming into this weekend, I thought that this was a dinosaur strategy, like a little too old. First week, all these other decks got a little more sophisticated. And I still kind of believe that, but if we see Batatina with the strategy, I'm gonna have to open that chapter again and reread it and figure it out for myself.
Uh, My issue looking at it is that if I'm playing this go over the top strategy, I don't want it to be easy for them to remove whatever my over the top threat is. And with how common soul transfer has been in these lists, and we've also seen multiple lists now with Rhoda's Vortex, I am worried about my
Titan can be a 2-for-1 though.
yeah.
It often is, or 3 for
Yeah, it can
1.
even be a 3-for-1 because that
Yeah,
the disenchant mode is really nice.
exactly.
So being able to, destroy an opposing fable or a wedding announcement, then get a 4/4 and say, okay, well, use your vortex. So you can play around it in that way and just use it to generate card advantage. But I want it to dominate the game. That's when I like playing those go over the top strategies. Like I like to Indomitable Creativity into Emrakul and not bother with Archon of Cruelty.
Yeah, but they learn from their mistakes and stop doing that with Magic cards. Like you got to jump through a lot of hoops. Like Goldspan Dragon's nice, but you have to cast a lot of spells to end the game that turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, those kind of cards get banned now. It's not, not at all. All right, see a Fable come down.
Very much a mid-rangey start to this game. Both players setting up with their card advantage. Might see a bunch of things trade. We've seen a duress from Botatinia. We're on cards with our bank busters. So um, looks like Botatinia is settling in to play that style of game in these post sideboard um, you know, games. And that makes a lot of sense, especially when you know there's going to be some sort of graveyard hate. You should expect some. And Titan is a very just castable card.
Yep.
You don't need to rely on it. And one of the things I really like about this Reanimator deck is it's not dependent on that plan. Cruelty of Gix is going to generate value even outside of that third chapter. So if there's a unlicensed hearse there, then your cards aren't dead.
One of the cards that we should highlight is this Terra Sunder. I think it is just such a simple but amazing card for these mid-range matchups when artifacts and enchantments are so important right now. Being able to have that cheap removal early, but then also another answer for Sheoldred gives you a lot of flexibility for a green and black card.
Yeah, definitely one of the draws to Jund is getting that kind of versatile removal.
Just fast, cheap, efficient. There's obviously been different variations of this forever, right? What was the Binding of Old Gods and
Yeah, and that saw significant play as
yeah,
well. And this one, I think, with how lean the decks are, having the ability to cast it as a 1 for 1 for 2 mana, deal with that wedding announcement before they generate any value off of it. Very important. And then, sometimes being an exile effect to exile, even a tenacious underdog in the late game.
Mm-hmm. All right, continuing to just keep drawing cards off these Bankbuster. That'll complete the 4 counters. And now needs to find an answer for the Sorin before it goes too far off. But unluckily for Batutina, Googly has one ready to go.
So the reflection is not summoning sick right now, right? Or
The reflection is not summoning sick.
yeah. But yeah, we need to. So I was thinking we could try to copy Bankbuster. Now that would just get you a vehicle that is not yet a creature that you have to crew again. So we need to be able to crew twice to do that. And unfortunately, just a little shy at Goblin Shaman not being able to fully crew with the Bankbuster. So yeah, we're gonna have to settle for just copying the Goblin Shaman and getting it for 2 with the Sorin. But we could, with one more reasonable body, we can start copying Bankbuster and either crewing again to attack or just drawing an extra card off of it every turn. Pretty mana intensive way to do it because you got to spend 1 on the reflection, 2 on the Bankbuster activation, but you'll at least keep up in card advantage with the Sorin. Maybe find a direct answer to it, like another Terra Sunder or a one. Ooh, Batutina has any.
All right, so we see Sorin ticking up, seeing if the life is worth the card. And it is to get a Meat Hook Massacre. That protects Sorin pretty well. But it's tough. Like, do you pull the trigger on it right now? It will clean up these 3 threats. I guess you clean them up. You keep your 3/3.
Yeah, keep your appraiser, so that's pretty
Yeah,
nice.
so just attack for 2, get a treasure yourself, clean up this board.
Batutina potentially sniffing the. Oh, yeah, the meat hook got revealed, didn't it?
Yes.
Drawn off Sorin. Okay. So don't need to sniff it out when you can see it. Both players pretty even on cards. So one thing to note here, Googly significantly behind on clock, about an 8-minute disadvantage there. So Googly, even though they won game 1, feels like they have to win this game because they might not have time to win a game 3.
Yeah, they have been taking really long turns.
I mentioned earlier how important in these long matchups, knowing your deck, playing quickly. Batutina, obviously, one of the most experienced Moto players of all time, very familiar with the interface, and that could come to his advantage in this match.
All right, so Shoulder is going to trigger. Batutina down to 10.
Hard to get that can end the
And now, do you do any discarding?
Yeah, good timing on that Shieldred.
That's so brutal. Shoulder just
And you think like, oh, it's a 4/5. I can just ignore it and draw some cards, which is what you would normally do with 4/5s in mid-range mirror. I'll answer it later, but Shieldred with that ability means you can't really do that.
can't really interact with it in the normal ways of finding answers.
Yeah, I wish I could see a video reaction of the first Pioneer, is it Phoenix player, to have their iteration cruise turn set up and their Rakdos opponent just cast Shieldred instead of Kalidas. Like, oh, they're tapping 4 mana for Kalidas, I'll be fine.
Well, we've got a Titan of Industry coming down.
Okay.
All right, what are the modes going to be?
Not a great target for the naturalized mode, so I would imagine make a 4/4 and shield counter it. Maybe they think he's just so likely to die to various things out of the Grixis deck that you're happy to just take a blood token with you.
I mean, you also could just gain that life.
Yeah, the liking mode definitely relevant against Shielder too. Normally would not be one I think of.
Okay, Rhino and Shield.
Oh, and we had an extra mana left over.
Another Titan.
So this one's definitely not getting a shield counter.
Yeah, I feel like we're getting another token and gaining 5 life.
Yeah, token life. And this Titan net is now hasty, so we can attack the Sorin. Ooh, that's a big turn.
Yeah, now that soul transfer will be able to take take down the actual Titan, but everything that's left over is going to be.
Deciding to deal with a treasure instead of making a 4/4. Interesting.
Is it a legendary token? No.
I can't imagine it is.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a rhino. I thought so, but yeah. All
Just
right.
a 4/4 Rhino Warrior with his little shield. Giant Rhino, little shield. This is a 7/7 with trample, correct? Yeah, reach and trample. So nothing short of a Shieldred block here is going to save this Sorin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
soaring down. I mean, we've got an extra one. We've got a soul transfer to deal with it, and then that rhino gets blocked by Shieldred. Now they don't know that there's an infernal grasp coming, but you can't really argue with that line. Soul transfer, maybe play trespasser.
Yeah. And then Infernal Grasp is going to stabilize the battlefield for Botchatinia, and then he has that line where you can True Bankbuster, copy it with Reflection, and start drawing extra cards. Or you can pressure the Sorin. So it looks to me like Botchatinia has the way forward here. Though we do see Meathook Massacres in both hands. I imagine Googly will be casting theirs maybe next turn after this second Fable transforms, so you can get both reflections. This turn might be the. Oh no, but we're stuck on 6 mana. Actually, Tutini dealing with that treasure ends up being really important here because we can't soul transfer plus Sorin.
Nope, it would just have to be trespasser plus soul transfer.
Yeah. And next turn planning to Meathook for 2 then. Okay, so you don't lose anything and you deal with both reflections. That seems reasonable to me. And whatever he's doing, Googly's got to do it quick because they're now under 5 minutes on their clock. Almost a 10-minute disparity here.
Yeah, just taking too long. And who knows, it could be internet issues too.
Yeah. Instead of opting for this is a 1-point Meathook. Interesting.
Is this this is to get enchantment to return?
Okay, yeah, so now the soul transfer can return something.
It has to be a creature, right?
Creature or
Can you return a planeswalker?
Yeah.
Okay, both their hands are updated. All right, so gonna get back
the
the
Sorin.
Sorin.
And you just crewing in response. They have another blocker if they want it.
I don't know if getting that meat hook down is worth a second Sorin in hand.
Yeah, I agree.
Because now you don't really I guess they're both updated, so there was a second meat hook. That's what it was. They drew.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they had the second Meathook last turn. But they've got to use that to deal with these reflections before they start going nuts.
Oh yeah.
Infernal Grass deals with the Shieldred, so Titania kind of out of gas here in terms of what's in hand.
Yeah, I like not attacking. Because
Yeah.
now you can crew, or there's two things that can happen. If they don't meat hook again, you can make a bunch of reflections at end of turn to attack. If they do, you can crew and make more bank busters. I guess if it's X4, you can't really. You don't want to lose the bank buster to it. All right, just going for Sorin.
Interesting. Don't think that's going to end well for Googly here.
No, so what's going to happen is make a reflection. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then so you can make 6 reflections and a rhino. And then you can then you can just attack with a bunch of rhinos.
Yeah.
Next turn. Tap every Infernal Grass, the 2/3, and just attack with a bunch of rhinos. It gets silly. I love fixed Kiki Jiki combos though. Yeah. All right. So untap, draw. Most likely going to see an Infernal Grass on the 2/3 life link, and then just make a bunch of hasty rhinos, and attack with all of them.
And that should do it.
Because yeah, now we have to go to a game 3, and
Yeah,
they have 3 minutes to win in.
yeah. If I'm googling, I'm F6ing here. Looks like they aren't because I see their clock going down.
Yeah, and if I'm Batutina, I'm bringing in every cheap removal spell.
Yeah. Okay. Googly decides to just pack it in. Also reasonable. It doesn't really make sense to let Batutina drain their clock. You're not catching up. I promise you. Yeah. I wonder what Googly has to get more aggressive here. They've got some graveyard trespassers, which are in anyway. Uh, you know, piece of graveyard hate, but I wonder if like all these underdogs and harvesters are still in just because the Batutinha's deck can go way over the top. So if those aren't, then they're probably coming back.
Yeah.
I think we just go every creature in the deck and cheap removal will probably cut all your meat hooks.
Uh,
Maybe leave one in.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to go for the win.
Yeah.
Yeah, so take out a bunch of your expensive removal, keep your cheap one and your tempo, and try to get there. And the opposite side should be the same. Cheap removal. Don't have a bunch of your win conditions in.
Yeah. Might see, trim down on Titan of Industries, maybe cut Cruelty of Gix entirely.
In situations like this, I actually go to every removal spell.
Yeah.
Take out my win
And
conditions.
there's plenty of removal in Pochettino's sideboard. How relevant is Parasitic Grasp even? How many humans do we have over here? Underdog is a human. Those are vampires. Urtai is a human, and the Graveyard Trespassers are human. So you have a decent number of those. We might even see those Parasitic Grasps come.
I wouldn't mind it.
Yeah,
I think it's fine. It's a little expensive for Fable, but whatever.
I know it can be a little awkward seeing the clock being, a relevant part of these matches, but I actually kind of like it because it puts players in situations that they're not used to being in and forcing them to make these on the fly adjustments. And I really like seeing what players come up with. It's the restriction breeding creativity mantra coming up, and that's when Magic gets, I think, at its most fun, as opposed to players just following their sideboard guides.
Well, I completely agree with you. And if Corey was here, he would also say that. He would bring up my magma spray. You know what we're talking about?
I don't.
So I had a cyborg guide for our Teamer Energy deck when we all did well in Denver.
Yep.
But because when I played against Corey, because I knew he had my cyborg guide and I knew he was going to use my cyborg guide, I deviated on sideboarding. And so when I wasn't supposed to have magma spray, I magma sprayed a servant and it completely crippled his game and I beat him because of it. And he has never felt betrayed. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, we're in a top 4 of a Grand Prix.
You kind of kibbled him.
How did I Kibler him? No, that is not even close to a Kiblering. So for anyone that doesn't know what a Kiblering is, it is when you make slight adjustments to, you play a different deck than the team deck for a Pro Tour. And on the last few days, you slowly have made slight adjustments to make sure that you have a really good matchup against your team, or vice versa. You want to play a deck, but the team plays a deck that you're bad against. So you decide to play the team deck and win the Pro Tour with it because you can't beat the team deck. So you can't play the deck you want to play. And that is a good old Kiblering.
That's the true Kibler. Okay. Well, it really took a little while, a few seconds to make their mulligan decisions there. But ends up both players keeping 7, and Googly's got to move quickly here.
I'm thinking it might just be a little bit of an internet issue. Maybe not, but it happens.
Yeah. First, a fine 2-drop normally, but here it's just not really applying any pressure. Nothing in the graveyard to get some counters on it. So, on Batutina, I actually feel fine seeing that.
Oh yeah. I mean, it can, as the game goes on, that's in the last 10 seconds that could deal 8 to 10 damage though.
Yeah.
You just both graveyards and just hope to swing for the fences with it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I could definitely sneak up there. So it is a click intensive card.
It is very much. All right, there we got our
Nice.
first hand cam. All right, so at least Patatina has this a tap land to not be able to use disruption on the Fable. That's gonna cost him. Hopefully that Narset will be online before that second chapter, so you can't do any discarding. All right, there we go with a goblin.
Gonna need a filter land to cast that Narset though.
Yeah. Celeste a little slow.
Yeah. Shot here. We can get a Shieldred down this turn. That's the ideal. So only one discard off the Fable. So Googly likes their hand. They pitch a second Hearse.
I mean, Soren's a great card.
Yeah.
This is a lot of pressure, but Meat Hook can catch up a lot of this.
They're now under 2 minutes.
All right, so let's see what Batutina has for turn 4 with access to 5 mana. Whoa. What is that first chapter again? I always skip ahead.
The first chapter is just a discard. Is a discard spell for a creature or a planeswalker. Second chapter is Demonic Tutor, lose 3 life. It's Grim Tutor.
So all right, so we see. All right, our hand cam that we can use is any of that counter spells, right? It's none of them, right?
No.
Okay, so now that we're going to lose 3 life, right? Batutina is, but that's going to
find a Meat Hook
yes.
Massacre 3.
Can that be a permanent?
No, just
No.
creature planeswalker. Yeah. The Meat Hook is going to be enough to stabilize here at a solid 11 life.
Yeah, that'll be enough life padding and time padding to be able to win this from Googly down to 1 minute and 15 seconds. Plus, this also is triggering Children in the Graveyard. That's going to be used later, maybe. I guess no, not because of this hearse. This is the final match being played. Okay. All right, Meat Hook Massacre comes down for 3.
All Googly can do is get another counter on the Hearse. So Hearse is Hearse 2 cards from a single graveyard? So that they wouldn't have been able to split it up 1-1. Reload with another token from Soren, but they're going to need another big threat, probably a Shieldred here to win in time.
Yeah, it's going to, well, I don't think there's enough time at this point. This is going to be a tough one. All right. That Saga won't have anything to reanimate. But yeah, that takes down the biggest form of damage and a Shieldred of their own. 4 cards are in hand though, so
Yeah, but it's 4 cards for both players, so Patatini's got, 4 back to just keep parity.
yeah.
Got about 20 seconds left in this match, and
All right, yeah, we can just come back to the booth. We know how this is ending. It's just not enough time. And this is the last match, so we're going to take a short break before we get to round 3. That was a long round with a long, awesome match, in all honesty. I really like that. And it's not often that we get to see a whole, like, we had such a quick, fast mono white versus Selesnya
yeah.
at the beginning.
We got to see 80% of our backup match, or
Yes.
90% maybe, yeah.
Yeah, which is great. But we're going to take a short break before we get to round 3. That will be the last match, so the players will be getting seated real soon. So we'll be back in a quick 5 minutes. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll be back for round 3 in just a minute. 5 minutes. It's fine. All right, hey everyone, welcome back. We are actually into round three immediately. The players are always going without us delaying things, so we want to get right back into the action. Welcome, my name is Brad Nelson. I'm joined today by Ross Merriam. This is round three of the Mana Trader Standard Series. We've got 7 rounds of Swiss today. There will be a cut to top 8, and then we will be watching the top 8 unfold tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So come join us then to see who we're sending to the December Invitational, which 2 players actually. So setting the stage, we've got that Azusa's many something, I forgot the name.
This is our Celestia Enchantress player
Many journeys, yes.
at 2-0 playing its Rakdos Sacrifice. And we saw last round Celestia absolutely steamroll mono white. Now, the Rakdos Sacrifice deck obviously a lot more interaction. We see Voltage Surge, Meathook Massacre, and Infernal Grasp all in Lavunga's hand. And so these Jukai Naturalists are not going to get out of control super early, but Rakdos Sacrifice usually doesn't have a ton of early pressure. That said, this draw with turn 2 Blood Tithe Harvester, turn 3 Fable, about the most pressure you can get. So I think an excellent start for Lavunga here with plenty of pressure. They've got their Fable down and a lot of ways to interact with opposing creatures. I would not be surprised if this Meathook Massacre gets the bin.
Yeah, I could see it because once it's just not one of those cards that it's going to stem a lot of bleeding later. Actually kept everything.
Everything interesting.
All right, Voltage Surge is going to come down.
I
Take care
wonder
of
if
that.
we'll see a Meathook for 0 here. Just want to get that down.
No, I think you want to save it for that big turn. All right, there we go.
Besides that, they like their hand.
Yeah, a couple key removal spells. I mean, these sagas flip into real threats.
Yeah.
Oh, actually dealing with the naturalist there means it's just going to come back. Actually, that might have been a little sidestep. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely wanted to wait until that trigger was on the stack because it does target it.
All right, so what are we going to take care of? Yeah, we don't want a reflection of Kiki Jiki hitting the battlefield, so Borrowed Time is going to take care of that.
Bit of a misstep there from Lavunga, not super familiar with the cards in this Enchantress deck. Definitely one of the benefits of going rogue. And the King actually has their single copy of Michiko's Reign of Truth in their hand. They want to get aggressive.
Yeah, without a steady stream of card advantage here, and that's one of the variant sides of the Selesnya decks. Not really drawing the card advantage engines, so we're seeing Rakdos having a few of their own with Bankbusters and Synthesizer. All right, what are we going to hit off that? All right, it's a spell.
Quality spell. Sure.
Some might disagree on how quality, but it's a role player. You don't get a Hogak without a what's the one drop called?
Stitcher Supplier.
Yeah, Stitcher Supplier.
It was Reign of Truth on the
Oh.
Jukai Naturalist. Let's get a big life swing here. And then the Catilda can come down and get pumped next turn by the Michiko's Reign of Truth for a really big swing.
But we know that that's not going to happen.
Infernal Grasp will definitely put the kibosh on.
And how this plays out, actually, that Meathook Massacre will take the board, right? Because it after this goblin trades off for a treasure token, that will kill off the other 3 creatures, lowering Catilda's power and toughness to die to it as well.
Yeah, so we could just see the big sweeps, and Lavunga knows there's no cards left in hand. So sweeping the battlefield is going to leave you with Fable, Infernal Grasp back, and Synthesizer, Bankbuster in play. That's a pretty good position.
Yes, it is.
We're going to give some life here with the Catilda block, but that's not a huge deal. Lunga getting paid off for keeping that Massacre that we were considering discarding.
There it comes. Board goes away. And yeah, no real engine to get these cards back either.
And I'm trying to think of like what are the cards you want to draw, and
It's not an overgrown
yeah,
farmland.
that is true. Right, Right of Harmony is your big card advantage card, but you're not set up to leverage it right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you could draw it this turn, cast it with the Michikosis trigger on the stack, get a card. Hopefully, that's another enchantment. Get 2 cards out of it. That could get the ball rolling because then you'd have it in your graveyard for the next big turn. A forest, also not a good draw.
All right, there it is. One big flying threat.
There are worse things. That's just going to eat the Infernal Grasp. Infernal Grasp is not a vampire.
Huh?
Yeah, it's pro vampires.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Infernal Grasp isn't a vampire.
That is true. Yep, I forgot. Took me a second to get there. All right, so Anicult is going to sacrifice.
And a couple lands off the top, and the king just has nothing going there, and Lavunga has the full engine really online.
Do I? So help me out with this moral quandary. Is it quandary?
Quandary or conundrum is probably
Conundrum is better word. Yeah,
Similar,
moral
synonyms.
conundrum.
Either works.
So I really like Lavunga, and I wish the best for him. But he did beat me in Arena Championship Finals once, and so I don't even feel like I should.
If it were me, I would hold the grudge.
Like I held with you.
Yeah, but that's for very different reasons.
All right, yeah. So let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go decking.
I mean, I've beaten you in a few matches of Magic, but none of them were particularly high leverage.
I don't know. An open that I brought a 2-month-old Jeskai control list from and didn't really care much about the tournament. Losing to you in top 8 still stung. All right, so let's see. I want to see green white pop off this game, and a rights in hand helps, but it's a slow start.
Yeah, there's not really anything to go with it. It would be a turn 5. You untap after the hunting, you play a right, you play borrowed time, and that's still only drawing 2 off of it. It's not even that great.
No, you definitely turn 6 the right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably just have to throw this borrowed time down to slow everything down. Get those 2 hauntings into play and see what happens. Oh, okay.
If you drew a Catilda, that can just sort of
Exist.
a little life, maybe trade for something next turn after you play another enchantment, get it to a 2/2. If it trades for this Bloodtithe Harvester right now, you're thrilled.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, it can't actually. It's pro vampires. Harvester's vampire, so
Yes,
it actually just checks the Harvester. That's great.
Big turn for Lavunga, because if the pressure doesn't show up, these hollowed hauntings are going to do work.
Yeah, along with Rite of Harmony. And how many? Only 2 duresses in the sideboard, so not a ton in the way of breaking this up. Yeah, Catilda now going to hold back 2 Bloodtithe Harvesters, which is normally you would think solid pressure. If that was my opener in this matchup, and I got to go Harvester, Harvester, maybe you cash in one of the Bloods. Now I can start finding some disruption. I'm pretty happy, but the Catilda was just a huge draw here for the King.
Yeah, this is fascinating. Actually, just really does. All right, so blood token's going to get sacrificed to try to dig for some more powerful plays.
If they can find a removal spell for the Catilda and get in for 6, maybe you're looking okay, but oh god. It is a lot of synthesizers. Is that a soul transfer?
That is a soul transfer.
That'll do it.
All right, in come the beats. That land was a huge draw too.
Yeah, definitely want to keep making your land drops.
Because now that means you can at least play right and draw 3 cards off of it with the borrowed time plus the
Yep.
tokens. Oh, the duress. It's not going to be super impactful, but it's good timing.
I mean, now the Rite of Harmony doesn't do a lot, right? You need a lot more mana. The rest is, I think, going to be excellent. And you can, oh yeah, these spirits keep getting bigger though. So if you
Yeah,
duress away Rite of Harmony, they just cast a borrowed time, make 2 more spirits, and I got 3/3/3s.
and then you cast another borrowed time and they're 5/5s.
Yeah. So you're kind of then priced into hoping you rip a land and meat hooking for 3, which is gonna wipe your battlefield too, and doesn't even deal with the source of the problem for these 2 Hallowed Hauntings. Yeah, I don't really know how Lafunga gets out of this. They need to aim prioritizing their life total there.
I mean, if Schiller comes down.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable because you're fine with them being 2/2s as well.
Yeah, takes that right. So that's going to be the card advantage engine. Wedding announcement. Not strong enough. Yeah. Oh, is going to be the cast over the borrowed times.
So wedding announcement makes human tokens on
Yep.
its end step trigger, so that's not going to make the hallowed haunting tokens any bigger. It will just give you more blockers. Make sure you keep your life total high, which I think makes sense. Your shielded is dangerous, so you do have these borrowed times to answer it. You know, a land off the top for the king next turn. We could just see double O ring, like 4 more spirits, and now I've got this substantial army.
Yeah. And that would, I mean, yeah, if any of these spirits also live after that fact, then that Meat Hook Massacre is not going to do it. I mean, maybe with a Harvester killing off one can kill off the rest. We'll see. So many different variables. These synthesizers might get cast this turn. Maybe find something interesting.
If I'm Lavunga, I can see the writing on the wall here. There's going to be an army of spirits. I need this meat hook to be able to answer them. So I'm setting up for that. And the harvesters are going to die to that meat hook anyway. So I think I'm happy to trade them for tokens to make sure the meat hook is live in the next turn or two when I need to cast it.
All right. Not the best, but maybe that is the cast. Or no, you're missing a land. Yeah. One additional land would allow for another duress to slow some of the bleeding. But yeah, send it all because you don't want these things to get out of control.
Yeah. You get your trades off and ensure the meat hook stays live. A little more damage in. Still applying quite a bit of pressure and have synthesizers back. Oh, there we
Oh, yeah,
go.
there we go. We get an engine.
This is going to draw 4 cards because we're going to get a wedding announcement trigger at the end step as well.
Yeah. Here it is. Yeah, take that harvester.
And now the
Oh, the next turn is so disgusting too. Oh, it is naturalist into teachings into borrowed time with it
with
being
the
a right
right.
turn.
So you're drawing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 cards.
I don't know. It's a lot. I'm not going to pay attention to how many it is. I just know we're just going to go wee.
I think it's 11.
So it'll be one off the naturalist, two off the Kieran, one off the bar time, one off, and then 6, and then one off the wedding. So it's 12.
12.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No, it is 11.
I did. And with another land, we can play another Things, right? Oh, we need a green source though.
Yeah, it'll be teachings plus restoration potentially. This is filthy.
This is the second time in this tournament we've seen them just recover from a sweeper in absurd fashion. Like, not only do they, recover and have some sort of battlefield, they have a battlefield that is markedly better than the one they had before, and more cards still back.
Oh yeah, it is just. There's just no way to come back in this format from this.
Yeah. Once the ball starts rolling, uh, with this Enchantress deck, it has the most powerful end game. This is ridiculous.
I think because of that wedding invitation, they drew 12 cards. I'm not going to say anything,
Yeah.
Math.
Didn't know
I'm just saying, you said 11, I said 12.
that.
And how many did they draw?
Oh, we do the second duress. That's got to be good.
I mean, look at all the cards they drew off that duress.
Yeah.
That is truly an impressive duress.
When duress gets fused with a contract from below.
Yeah.
And they do have some green mana from those proving grounds.
Yeah. All right, well, we're going to game 3. This is exciting.
We saw game 1 where Lavunga was able to apply a lot of pressure early, and the King never really got off the ground. And it looked like that could have happened in game 2, but the Catilda draw on turn 3, holding back an army of Blood Tithe Harvesters, gave them the time to set up even through a duress for the first Rite of Harmony and get this ball rolling. So if I'm Lavunga, I am prioritizing aggressive starts. I'm getting all my creatures in there. I am,
I think that's where they were already at. Lavunga's been playing Magic enough to know, oh no, I can't beat the long game. I need to win the early game.
Definitely.
Little misstep with that early removal spell, though. Or was that game 1? I
think that was game 1. Because
Yeah,
there
it
was no
was,
early Jukai Naturalist in game 2.
Yeah. All right. Well, I do think that we're taking many journeys this game and mulliganing that.
Yeah. No mulligans for Lavunga, though. I think that hand looks excellent with 3 lands, Harvester, Fable, Duress.
Yeah, it looks like a good 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, we can even Duress on 1 and curve perfectly here. And take that Restoration of a Ganjo. Maybe take the Hallowed Haunting.
I'm usually in the camp of take the card that is going to kill you if it gets going.
Yeah, especially because they have other things to do on turn 3. Like if Restoration was their only 3-drop, other expensive cards. Yeah, the Hallowed Haunting is definitely the scariest card there.
And it doesn't look like it's going to get there, but eventually it might. I think it's bar time or Hallowed Haunting. Yeah, when we saw the Hallowed Haunting go. I mean, there's a lot of times when I'm looking at hands and I'm like, you have to really justify not taking the card that's going to kill you.
Yeah.
Like you have to know the path of all the turns. And it's just too early to know that.
Okay. Draws the land to play off this many journeys. See if they draw the 4th land. I guess that they have the 4th land from Restoration.
Yeah.
Solid start, but maybe they'll want to play Borrow Time this turn to stem the bleeding.
Well, you will get a 3/3 the following turn, and you
you're
just
gaining 3
gain
life,
3.
okay.
Yeah, I think getting that restoration and getting that going, because that's a 3/4 that also generates value.
You don't have anything to go with the second chapter.
Yeah, not even an extra land.
You potentially want to wait until the Zeus's Many Journeys has transformed and then trade it away, and you can return it with the restoration. Like they might be setting that up and drew another land. So that makes a lot of sense when you draw the Spars headquarters to play one of the non-restoration cards.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've got, a little bit more aggression with another harvester. The synthesizer along with the anvil will be able to generate some value too. I like popping a synthesizer right now.
Because your 4th land is colorless, you can't play. you play Synthesizer, you potentially can't play both Anvil and Harvester here. I think I would save the Synthesizer until next turn.
I guess you might want to activate the
Yeah.
anvil.
Oh,
Oh yeah, using the treasure to create the token.
yeah. Sequencing there, and now we've got max pressure here. One blocker generated from the Saga transforming. Yeah, now we can just play Catilda as a 3/3 lifelink pro vampires. Or two, it's a 2/2, isn't it?
No, it should be a 3/3.
3/3?
They're all enchantments. Hard
Oh
time,
yeah, that's
both
an
of them.
enchantment
Yep.
creature. Yep. I was thinking it's not a spirit, but another
Oh, so
synthesizer.
many synthesizers. So much value.
Like the 80s in here.
Another anvil.
Fine. Problem is, you really want to get one more big attack in. You start using these anvils. Hilda is stopping that. Needed one removal spell here. That was the one thing missing from Lavunga's hand, and
Well,
he
that
hasn't
can
found it.
happen, and now you can attack with the 2/2, get a treasure out of it. Can't really make that trade. One of the anvils, I guess, can't check the Catilda because it has flying, but it's so small right now. Makes
Now
sense.
we
And
are
now,
set up to restoration and return the as many journeys, and really wanted to hit another spell to play there. Like all your 3 drops are live. That was a big missed draw step from the King.
so we're really seeing the side of the deck. It really is Harmony plus the
Hallowed Haunting.
Hallowed Haunting.
And now, though, now the Catilda's still a 3/3. Like, I guess we can attack with all our constructs. Oh, no, is Anvil's not sorcery speed, right?
No,
No, no.
it's based on your turn or their turn and first activation. So
Yeah.
you can attack with all three, whichever one gets blocked, sacrifice that one.
Yeah. So you can still get a little damage in, but the Catilda's going to buy us a good deal of time. The problem is there's not really one big draw here that gets the King back into it.
No, that's the problem with how this deck, you need that snowball effect.
Yeah. I mean, we could draw Rite of Harmony here, cast it in response to the Chapter 2 trigger of Restoration, draw a card off of it, hope to hit another enchantment, and maybe snowball from there, but that requires multiple good draw steps.
Bankbuster, that's not great, but you still play it.
You know, it can attack into the Catilda next turn, and you screw it up with the Harvester, so fine by me, and it's going to use your mana and draw another card. Ugh.
Yeah, there it
Yeah,
is. Knowing the
King,
writings on the wall, too
yeah,
much snowball.
yeah. I just needed a couple more big draw steps, hit a couple lands, just like in the Top Deck War in Game 1.
Yep, exactly.
Not a lot of ways to fix your draws in that deck. It's just card advantage from right. In the game where synergies got online, they won going away. In the games where they didn't get online, they lost. That's the way it goes with decks like that.
Yeah, Enchantress decks are often that case. But welcome back to the booth, everyone. My name is Brett Nelson. I'm joined by Ross Merriam, and we are in the middle of round 3 of the standard Mandatory Series. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We know that there's a lot of places you can be today, and hanging out with us is truly appreciated.
It's my favorite place.
When you're paid.
Oh yeah,
when I'm hanging
that's the quiet part.
When
though,
you're
Brad.
hanging out. Yeah. Oh, that's the quiet part.
This is round 3 of 7 that we will be featuring today. Afterwards, we will cut to our top 8. The top 8 will be played tomorrow, starting at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So we got 4 more rounds today. After this one, we might get to a backup match.
Oh, I'm gonna have to stop you because we have queued up Rakdos versus Esper. Esper, it's been a while. We haven't seen it on camera yet, so we finally get to. Oh no! What is happening? All right, so let's highlight Jaya because that's one of the newer cards in the format. And so, yeah, Jaya is to create a monk that has prowess, and you can exile 2 cards, and she's one of them to play that turn. And then 2 other abilities that I'm not going to read because it's a little too blurry.
The -2 is you deal damage equal to the number of attacking creatures to something. when you attack. I don't know. The timing on it is a little weird. It's based on it. Is it just creatures on the battlefield? I'll bring it up. There's a one of in Salvado's sideboard, by the way. It's whenever you choose the creature when you activate it, then whenever you attack this turn, deals damage equal to the number of attacking creatures. Creature.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
All right. In all honesty, though, this is not looking too bad now. Things are stabilized. There's a wedding invitation and announcement. The board is filling up.
Yeah, we just came in right at the time where Salvado had played their stuff, and then it was was that Tomb Silmon?
Yeah, Tom Simon.
Tombs-
I believe that's Simon Nilsson, if I'm correct. Am I right, Adrian? I think it is. Yeah, Simon
Oh, so
Nilsson.
this is Luis Salvado against Simon Nilsson.
And if I'm correct, I think Simon is going to the World Championships next month.
A little tune up in their Esper list. Um, copies of the sort of like remand creature. Little
Oh,
Lord of the Ground with
this is
Spectre
interesting because
Adept.
we're attacking a bunch of threes. That Bankbuster's coming in. Are we going to see another Emperor coming down to give first strike here? I feel like this attack is very aggressive without it. And here it is. Another Flash Planeswalker. +1/+1. First strike to the previous Wanderer's token. And in response, going to Infernal Grasp it. Giving prowess to the other two tokens, blocking. What a combat.
You normally don't see this amount of trickiness when it's all creature tokens.
No. And drawing a card off the Bank Buster.
Feel pretty happy about this exchange if you are Salvado, though you still have to deal with that Wandering Emperor, and then there's a second wedding announcement. So all these tokens that Simon Nielsen is generating are going to be quite large.
Your card because more than one creature attacked.
Both players with just a handful of cards left. Sizer gets sacrificed. It's Fable. That's really good.
Fable is a nice card. I mean, it's.
I would elect to cast that one. I told him.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things that often happens is there's a continuation of value on both sides of the board, but as Esper gets going, their creatures continue to get a little bit bigger thanks to the Wandering Emperor and Wedding Invitation. That's what we're seeing here. Now, things aren't out of control by any stretch of the imagination. Esper, Simon needs something powerful to happen to get to feel comfortable in the game, whether it's Rafine or some counterspells. An Infernal Titan. An Infernal Titan definitely could get the job done.
Especially with that recurring nightmare, you can loop with all the tokens for Wandering Emperor.
That's phenomenal. I don't know what the breeding pool's for.
That's a great mana base for your Inferno Titan deck. Breeding Pool Integrancy. Rafine is a nice one just as a flyer that can easily pressure the Jaya. Playing a little defense, start protecting the Emperor. Even with a connive on a non-creature and a counter from the Emperor, Rafine will only be a 3-power attacker next. If the Jaya pluses, that still doesn't do it. Oh, wow. Discarded that? I can't remember its name, but that's the Mind Spring that you cast at instant speed if X is 3 or less.
Yeah, the cheaper Mind Spring. Yeah, we've got it on the screen. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's the same cost as Mind Spring or Brain Geyser.
Yep.
It's just an instant of X is 3 or less.
I like the design of that.
Yeah. That seems like a pretty good card in this spot where you're like at least semi-stable.
Well, it's probably counterspells
that they're holding on to.
Yeah, cards that interact with the board. Like you've got Rafine that can draw cards.
Might have a second copy too. There's 3 Silver Scrutinies in the sideboard.
That is a lot of them. That is interesting.
Simon not messing around with drawing cards.
I mean, Simon's list looks like he mess around. There's a lot of fun ofs in there. All right, triple blocking, taking 2 tokens, and Meat Hook Massacre is going to get some more value. 2 to you, 1 to me. Going to make another token, pass the turn, get another token, and everything gets an additional +1/+1.
Oh yeah, the Rafine's getting pumped by those. So the Rafine should be big enough to deal with this Jaya. It's 3 power right now, and you can dive a non-land and get a counter with the Emperor. Either one of those will get it to a 4 power attacker for the Jaya, with the Jaya plus on this turn. So answering that Rafine is definitely a high priority here for Salvado, because without the Jaya, he doesn't really have any more sources of card advantage.
Yeah, Jaya found a synthesizer. Let's see what that finds.
There's a Bank Buster.
Children. Well, let's see if there is a counter spell. Yeah, make sense. Sacrifice a token to make disappear 2 copies of it. Won't have to pay for either because they know it exists, but that will take down the Children.
Yep, and at only 2 mana, I don't think there's something that's going to take down this Rafine, because it is too large to get down, and too large to get voltage surged, even with an artifact sacrifice.
Nice and Hearse comes down. That might be the most non-land, non-creature permanents I've seen on a board in a while. It's a lot. Non-token, non-creature, non-land.
Yeah. But 3 artifacts, 2 enchantments, and a planeswalker. There's so many artifacts and enchantments in this standard
What
metagame.
is this? Oh, you're right. There's a draw 4. Reload for this Rafine if everything wants to come in.
And the tokens have vigilance, so they can come in easily. The Rafine is going to answer the Jaya, and there's not a ton coming back. So things looking quite good now for Simon Nielsen, our Esper player on the top of the screen. Sort of playing out the way you said it. You know, eventually all these anthems stack on top of each other, and suddenly all your creatures, which are not full cards, you know, they're creatures that are coming from 1 activation of Wandering Emperor or 1 trigger of Wedding Announcement, only become quite valuable. These are 4/4 vigilance tokens that the Wandering Emperor is creating, and that, you know, turns what was normally sort of 1 to 2 cards worth of value into 3 or 4 cards worth of value. Rakdos deck hasn't really been able to keep up. I was wondering if they'd be able to pressure enough that the Meat Hook Massacre could, you know, maybe get them into range, but that hasn't been the case. Nielsen here at a pretty healthy 12 life, you know, staring down just a couple small creatures. Get a Bankbuster trading with a token.
Yeah, when got to do something.
That is rough. Yeah, now Emperor just, you know, replaces that token. Still got 2 blockers back. For what is at most 3 attackers should the hearse get crewed, and some of them are particularly large.
All right, sacrifice and synthesizer to find a synthesizer. Gotta be big. The anvil's not. So many redraws.
Well, the anvil is interesting because it starts triggering a Meat Hook Massacre and drains itself. Maybe we could end up stealing this game. A lot are still on 20, so there's going to be a few more turns.
Yeah, there's the possibility of gaining a little bit of life, but against an anvil, it becomes more difficult. A lot of times when I get into bad spots with Esper, I'm using the Obscurus to gain me some much needed life every now and then, which is not something that Simon is playing. I was playing 4 at the time, but that was probably a little aggressive. That was when a lot of people were still playing Invoke Despair. But yeah, it seems like not a card that is that likely to. There's 2 in the deck list. Maybe a Shieldred who gain some life here. Oh, Shieldred plus Rafine sounds filthy in the late game.
Yeah, that seems pretty good. And it could be a lifelink creature.
Yeah, Dennick's also very good. All right, so we're seeing 3 attacks. That's Rafina's targeting itself. Gonna look through 3 cards.
Simon could find his own copy of Meat Hook Massacre. All his creatures are bigger, so
Oh,
you can
yeah.
just play it for 2, and that'll probably end things.
Quite quickly, yeah. Right, deciding what to discard to the connives. What do we see? Seems like a duress, a land. Oh, that was already resolved. But yeah, it seems like duress on a few lands. Yeah.
Simon just seeing so many cards now. It's hard to imagine Alvaro outdrawing him.
Yeah, animating that hearse to block, then activate to get it to enough power to make a trade.
Yeah. Alvaro just treading water here, hoping to crawl across the finish line with Anvil and Massacre. Gonna need some help from the top of Simon's deck.
Make another token for 4. And any use of the rest of that mana.
You know, one of the 4 cards, or at least I think it's the Wandering Emperor that's still in there.
It might be.
Yeah. And we get 2 cards off of the land there. Now hand's pretty full again, but that Harvester. Oh yeah, would have been good with the reflection, but cut down ends any dreams of that. Imagine we goblin free treasure. Another point of life loss. So Simon down to 7 now.
And it's interesting that they okay. It's interesting that they allowed to not kill that earlier, like last turn, so that
Oh wow.
this might be lethal.
Yeah, I think this is gonna be a lethal attack. If Simon doesn't have anything, Salvado might have found it. Just 2 more copies of Anvil. That was exactly what he needed.
Now Anvil has to sacrifice an artifact, and because of that, if there is a wonder, it can gain 2 life by exiling one of these non-artifact creatures.
Oh, there it is. That's going to get Simon up to 9 and then block both. Going to take 1 from the Goblin die and go to 8. 1 from the Construct die and go back down to 7. Then Alvado's going to get 3 tokens from that Construct dying. And oh no, but yeah, there's the Vigilance creature attacking. I think this is going to be exactly enough. Go to 6, and each Anvil is effectively worth 2, right?
Oh, it is.
I think it's exactly enough.
Well, I think it's yeah. Oh, it is.
Each Anvil is just worth 2. As long as you sack constructs to it and not other artifacts. Wow.
Oh. What is it? What is it? No, okay. Wow.
Incredible finish to that game.
That was amazing.
And I'm looking at the clocks for both players. I see 7:06 for Simon Nielsen and 7:07 for Luis Salvado. And I don't know what game that was. I assume that was game 2.
It feels like a game 2.
So we are likely going to game 3 here with both players going to be under some time pressure. Incredible that Salvado was able to steal that game. If I'm Simon, I gotta feel like I got kind of unlucky towards the end there because he's got
Yeah,
7 cards in hand. Didn't find one of his cards that would put the game away. And Salvato found multiple more copies of the Anvil, which feels like the only way for him to end that game.
oh, there's the times I'm saying, oops.
Uh,
Wonder what the mistake was. We would have had to see
yeah.
what was in the hand.
Might have been able to make some play that was a little more conservative, maybe gain a little bit of life. Maybe he had the way to lock it up and just didn't think there was a way Salvato could finish him.
Fascinating though.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have hand cams for either player, but we'll get to
I said Salvato was going to need to limp across the finish line, and he did just enough.
just enough. Yeah. 2 turns away from probably
Yeah,
all the lethal that was necessary.
just a nose breaking through the ribbon at the end of the race. Now, game 3. Do you think anything changes with both players being under a bit of time pressure here? Are they both trying to be aggressive?
I think that not a lot will change. 7 minutes is a lot, and
Yeah.
Esper is kind of an aggressive deck.
These are, of course, both 2 experienced players, so I don't see we'll have anyone with a huge advantage on just operating the interface.
Yeah. Well, that duress will eventually let us see the hand. So let's take a look at that. If we hit the eyeball, we'll be able to see the rest of the hand.
The wedding announcement.
Is that a Shieldred? Oh, a Denic off the top.
That Naganja was the land.
All right. What's the blue card? All right. Make disappear. So needs to be a black source off the top. There it is. This. All right.
That is exactly what Simon needed. And Salvato looks a little land light. I have to imagine there's no land 4 here. If your first 3 lands are double pain land colorless,
Yeah, I had that.
has the grasp, but look at Salvato's already put himself to 13, taking 4 from those 2 grasps and 3 pain from the sulfurous springs. So
And a wedding announcement.
dealing himself 7 damage here in the early turns is going to make it harder to stabilize.
And no, if it's no 4th land, oh,
No second black. Oh, there's the second black source for Shieldred next turn.
eventually, yeah.
Has the make disappear, and the wedding announcement is going to apply significant pressure that is hard for Salvato to answer. Yeah, and then has the Denic out of the graveyard here is another fine play. We got 5 power now that Salvato's staring down. He's got this Bank Buster, which is a nice card, but that's not really what the game is about. Very awkward mana draw here from Salvato in game 3, compounded by those Infernal Grasps. I see Roadside Reliquary is a 2 of in the list out of 24 lands, so through 3 of these 6 between that and the 4 springs. None of the other 18.
Oh, found the land.
That is important. But this Shieldred, and he's already used 2 Infernal Grasps. How many more answers to a Shieldred does Salvato have? Voltage Surge doesn't do it, even with an artifact.
Love this attack. Just attacking with 1, so you
Yeah.
get the token over the draw. And there's a Shieldred. There's another token. That's 11 power in play.
Honey Cold Anvil is not going to do it.
That's not what you're looking for.
Yeah. Really needed maybe a Soul Transfer to deal with the Shielded, but then you're taking 2. Would have been at 7, staring down 6 power. Yeah, just too much self damage here from Salvato. A nice aggressive start from Simon Nielsen. He still has the make disappear up too. So that Oni Cold Anvil was so non-threatening that decided to just let it resolve.
Yeah, there it is. Simon wins the match. And now is this 3-0? Amazing. Yeah. Simon is one of my good friends and testing partners for many years on the professional tour that is coming back.
Yeah.
We will be taking a step down the regional tour, trying to qualify for that here soon. and exciting enough, even if I don't qualify for the Pro Tour, which I don't have high hopes because I don't really test enough these days, and all these players have been grinding away and really prepared for this tournament. I think it's going to be I mean, there's going to be so much awesome Magic in November, December. There's going to be all the regional championships. There's going to be the December Invitational with Mana Traders, and
There's an energy showdown.
there's just a ton of Magic. But the next Pro Tour is in Charlotte, so I'm going to it no matter what, win, lose, or draw. I'm going to go and have a good time. But yeah, that's going to do it for round 3, everyone. We have 4 more rounds of action to go. There's just a few matches cleaning up. So we're going to take a little break, order us some lunch, I'm guessing. I'm getting a little hungry. Order
like
us some lunch, and then we'll be back for round 4 and our midway match for the day next round. And we'll see if Esper can keep destroying everyone, because that's the story of the whole weekend so far.
Well,
Esper's destroying everyone. See you guys next round. Esper's great.